Welcome to my How to Make Millions DVD, How My Students and I Make Millions and You Can Too by Timothy Sykes. My website is www.timothysykes.com. Before we begin, I have to share with you this important legal disclaimer because I am just a self-made millionaire trader, okay? I am not a broker, I'm not a financial professional, I'm not an accountant, I'm not an investment advisory service. I have no registrations, I have no licenses. I'm just teaching you what has made me millions of dollars. And sometimes I've lost too, okay? So this isn't like a foolproof get rich quick scheme. I'm teaching you what I've learned in the past 15 years of trading. And just because I've been profitable in the past does not necessarily mean that I, and especially you, will be profitable in the future. There are a ton of risks associated with the stock market, with finance, with penny stocks, with trading penny stocks. So just beware that you can lose everything. You can lose all your money. And I'm going to try and help you not do that because I don't want that to happen. But it could happen if you break the rules that I'm giving you over the next 20 plus hours. So if you need to pause this DVD, you can read all of this small print. This is all required by my lawyers, and this allows me to teach. Because everything I do over the next few hours, and pretty much everything I do in life, is to teach you. Because I've learned a ton by myself. I'm totally self-taught. And I wish someone had made these kinds of video guides when I first started. It would have saved me a lot of losses. It would have just made me a lot more money a lot quicker and saved me from making so many boneheaded mistakes. But this is a new industry, so thankfully at least I can try and help you. But understand, this long disclaimer just means that I am not liable for any of your profits or losses. I'm just here to teach you. And that's all I want credit for. Okay, if you make a lot of money, say, hey, Tim Sykes was my teacher. If you lose a lot of money, say, hey, I broke Tim Sykes' rules. Because that's usually what happens. And I don't want it to, but guess what? This is a tough industry. And I want to teach you how to make millions. I want to teach you how to survive and thrive. So, all of my profits from this DVD go to charity. I don't want you to think that I'm just making this DVD to make money off teaching. I make millions, yes I do, by teaching, and I'm proud of it because I have a good business, I have successful students, I have millionaire students, as you'll soon learn. But this DVD in particular, all of it is going to charity. We have raised roughly $100,000 in the pre-sale before the DVD was even available to be published. And my goal is to raise over $2 million in 2015 and even more in 2016 and beyond. And this is kind of a new project for me. I'm really excited. I want to give back to those less fortunate because there are a lot of people out there like that. And they deserve help in the form of money, monetary, financial assistance, and whatever we can do. So I am in the process of creating the Timothy Sykes Foundation, which will be a 501c3 nonprofit foundation. It takes a little while to create, but for right now, I'm just donating all of the profits myself. And as I record this, I've already donated to Make-A-Wish Foundation and the Boys and Girls Club of Miami. And we should have some cool news coming out in the next few weeks so you can see what your DVD money is going towards. That's just the start. I have a lot of charitable ambition, so just, I don't know, get excited. I'm pretty proud of it, as you can tell. So congratulations, you have taken the first step to making millions. What it comes down to really make a lot of money, and not like by winning the lotto, but it's education, okay? Lotto winners aren't even that happy if you actually look at the statistics. But those who make millions of dollars through sheer skill and knowledge, those people are very self-sufficient, very happy, very satisfied, and I promise you, when you get there, it is so, so, so worth it all. So, becoming a millionaire is possible, but you must be meticulous. You must have a plan, and ideally, a mentor/guide. There's a lot of people who want to be millionaires. In fact, most people in the world want to be millionaires, but not everybody is going to be. And because most people are not going to be meticulous, they're not going to have a specific plan. They're just going to say, oh, I want to make $1 million, la-di-da. And worst of all, they're not going to have a mentor/guide. And so they're going to have pretty much no chance at actually making millions because they're just on the wrong track. I am a multimillionaire, but it took too long learning on my own. And I want to speed up your education/journey and be the mentor to you that I never had. This is pretty much the sentence that defines my life because I went through years and years and years of struggling. I made a lot of money, but I struggled at really trying to form a plan and, understand, am I lucky? Do I have a skill? I didn't understand it all. And it was because I'm totally self-taught and I didn't have anybody saying, hey, here's what you're doing right, here's what you're doing wrong. So this is what I want to do for you. And because I already have a few millionaire students, it works. This guide will teach you the path to making millions. It's not just about picking the hottest stocks. It's not just about knowing what a balance sheet looks like. It is a clear path. Whether you're starting with a few $1,000s, 10,000, 20,000, 50,000, whatever. It is a path. It is a blueprint to making millions of dollars. All of the lessons, rules, and tactics I have learned over the past 15 years. And understand, I have refined my strategy to minimize risk and have become a more effective teacher too. As I published this in late 2014, this is my best trading year ever. I've made nearly $1 million in this year alone in trading, but more importantly, I have not had any big losses for the first time ever. And I'm most proud of that. That's why my gains are so much more, because I don't have this heart attack inducing losses that I used to have. And I've really learned to minimize my risk, and I want to pass that down onto you. Also, lessons/videos, some never seen before, of my millionaire students and millionaire friends, so you can see how we have each made our money. This is not just about me. I'm not the only millionaire or multimillionaire in the world. There's a lot of us. And fortunately, I've gotten a few of us to really share our rules and patterns and lessons that we've learned along the way. Most millionaires are very selfish. Most self-made millionaires, they don't want to give up their secret sauce. They don't want others doing what they do. They want to keep making their money. Most of my millionaire friends say, Tim, just stop talking about all of this. Just make your money. You have a great strategy. Just don't tell anybody. Why are you risking it all? And I think that's a stupid way to live. I really do. I've made a lot of money. I've enjoyed life, but giving back, teaching you guys these lessons that have changed my life and now have changed the lives of several of my millionaire students and many of my students who are making 6 figures a year, that's awesome. And I wish more and more millionaires will understand that. So hopefully, this is my goal for you. Once you make millions of dollars, hopefully you can, pay it forward and try and teach other people too. I want to kind of create a new class of millionaires that aren't so douchey and just spoiled and selfish. I want to create, really giving millionaires so that those of us who are successful can really teach the unsuccessful and the less fortunate and just everybody, so that we have this whole just widespread abundance of knowledge that we've never had before. And I think that would be awesome. Obviously, I'm an idealist, but I think it could be possible. In this guide, I outline my strategy, rules, and lessons and patterns that have made my top students and I millionaires and multimillionaires. But I am still learning and adapting to the market and new plays every single day. You need to understand that once you make $1 million, your life isn't over, your learning isn't over, you're always learning. It's always a process, but you get better. You learn to see, okay, this is what made me my first 100,000, this is what made me my first 1 million. Now let me try and take that and compound those lessons to the next lessons. I highly, 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 highly recommend my trading challenge if you want to keep up with your studies. This is so important. My trading challenge includes weekly webinars with my millionaire students and you can see our trades and screens live. Everybody loves our live trading webinars. The screens that we show are fantastic. I'll get to my millionaire students in a second, but just for an example, Tim Grattani, who's my second millionaire student, shows off his specific screens and scans every night and his spreadsheets, and it's just so useful. This is the model that I want going forward, but just understand that even if you do make $1 million, when you do make $1 million, then it's not over. I want you to be able to make 2, 3, 5, 10. Get financial security. That's really what this is about. If you make $1 million, that's awesome. I know a lot of people in the world who want $1 million, but if you really want to live luxuriously, get the knowledge so that you can make millions more and you're not just dependent on 1 million for the rest of your life. So I want you to model our success and make it your own. Learning from those successful speeds up your journey. I can't tell you this enough. I think there's a big problem with our education system in America, in the world for that matter, where the teachers are just pretty much average people. They don't do anything wrong, but they just haven't done that much in life. And when you have people who haven't done that much in life, there's a saying, those who can't teach do, or those who can't do teach. I'm not even that smart, as you'll hear. But those who can't do teach, that creates this whole kind of education from mediocre and average people. I think you should be learning from the best, right? The people who have actually made it. So that's what I want to show you in this. There's a lot of people that you can learn lessons from, but I've chosen a few multimillionaires because I think they offer the most useful lessons. Also, understand that hard work and practice always overcomes talent. As you hear, I just messed up. I'm going to keep it in there. I'm not going for perfection with this DVD or teaching or trading or anything. I'm going to work my butt off on all of that, but I don't have some inherent talent with stock trading. I'm not really good at math. I'm not that amazing at giving these presentations, but I work harder than I think you'll meet anywhere else. Nobody anywhere else will work as hard as I do on trading, on teaching, on really just giving you the tools that you need to really learn. And you as a student, you have to understand this, that it doesn't matter if you stink at math. It doesn't matter where you are in the world, and I'll get to that in a second, but it's all about hard work and practice. Practice, 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 practice. I'm going to give you some examples of some of my students who practice harder than most of you guys think is possible. But you can never practice too hard. Look at Kobe Bryant. If you look up his work ethic online, you'll see that he's shooting foul shots at 4 a.m. He's crazy, but he's also one of the best. Michael Jordan. A lot of athletes, you can look at them and you see how much they practice. Unfortunately, a lot of traders and investors, you don't see how much they practice because they don't talk specifically about it. But hard work will help you, and it will overcome any talent or knowledge or intelligence deficiencies that you have. Also, this is probably one of the most important points in this DVD. This is a proven recipe, okay? Follow the instructions. There is no need to fumble around and guess what will work, but be dedicated in your studying these instructions. So everything I'm about to share with you in this DVD has been proven to work. Okay, when I first created my millionaire student, Michael Good was my first one last year, okay, maybe I got lucky. Then my second one, and now I have several more who are on the verge of, beating $1 million, and eventually they'll get to 2, 3, 4 million, but they're on the right path. This is a path. This is a recipe. This is a recipe book. I'm basically a chef here, okay? You don't have to guess on what patterns to play and take a pattern that I'm giving you and then try and come up with your own pattern. Do exactly what we do. Look at the same patterns the way that we do. Follow the same kinds of rules and you will be a millionaire. It's a very cool thing. And you're very fortunate to be, learning about this now. For the first few years when I was teaching, I struggled. I didn't have a clear path of how I could get all of my knowledge out there most efficiently. But now I do. This is a good point. Save years by following the recipes of great chefs. Imagine if you want to be a great chef and you're in the kitchen, you're experimenting, and you're mixing the milk and the oil and, I don't know, maybe if you're like a 7-year-old chef, you would do that. But, you don't need to try all these different weird combinations. I'm going to give you the recipe. You can definitely use my recipe and add your own stuff to it, but I'm giving you the recipe. Also, I want you to visualize your goal of becoming a millionaire and do everything possible to achieve success. Be very specific with your goals. Verbalize them. Write them down and work every day on getting there. Say out loud to yourself, I want to be a millionaire. Say, I am going to be a millionaire in the next 5 years. Say it when you wake up. Say it when you go to bed. It is a process, so you really have to remain motivated and determined throughout. It's not all going to happen overnight, and you don't want it to happen all overnight. But you need to stay motivated throughout the process because you get closer and closer to your goal through knowledge and gradually building your account. See, this is the problem. Many say they want to be millionaires, but they give up along the way during the path. This is a very, very, very common mistake where whatever happens, you give up along the way and you don't realize your full potential. I want you to set big goals for yourself and do everything you possibly can to achieve them. Work harder than you ever thought possible. How badly do you want this? If you can't visualize being a millionaire and truly believe it's possible, chances are you won't achieve millionaire status. I see all these people who say, oh, I want to make millions, but it's never going to happen to me. And they put themselves down and they subconsciously, talk themselves out of it. And with that mindset, no matter how, small a difference it makes, it does matter. You need every single helper that you can get. And that includes self-confidence. So I want you to choose a symbol to represent your goals and look at that symbol daily to push yourself. Here is my symbol that when I was growing up, I always wanted a Lamborghini. This is like an old Lamborghini. And I would look at, this wasn't the exact one. There was some poster that I had in my bedroom growing up. And I was thinking, how great would it be to have this freaking Lamborghini? You need to be really, really rich, though, to be able to afford it. And so I always had this in the back of my mind. I know it's stupid. I know it's superficial, and I haven't really talked about this, publicly, but it helped me because I could visualize that Lamborghini. I could almost taste it, like a fat kid who can visualize eating cake. This was my fat kid cake. And you can see how happy I was when I first got my Lamborghini delivered. This was, I was actually really excited. The truck had just come and dropped off this Lamborghini. I didn't want an orange Lamborghini, okay? I tried to get a black Lamborghini. I wanted to be like the Jewish Batman, with a black Lamborghini. But I did not have a car for 7 years, and trying to get insurance for your first car after 7 years with a Lamborghini is not easy. By the time I got the insurance, it was like 2 weeks and the black one had sold. There aren't that many Lamborghinis made every year. So I've had fun with it. Here's a few more shots. It's more than just a car. It's more than just something that gets me from A to Z. I mean, it's a symbol. It's a symbol of your success. I mean, when you can spend that kind of money on a car, you have made it, financially speaking. Now, I'm not going to get into philosophical, how to get spiritual and how to be happy in life. I'm here to teach you how to make money, how to be financially free. Because once you have $1 million or $2 or $3 million, you are free from so much of the hardship in this world. Debts, food. I can't even tell you how much people struggle just to pay rent and mortgages and student loans and taking care of their loved ones, taking care of kids, taking care of pets. I mean, the daily expenses that life, just brings to us, it's rough. And that kind of weighs you down. Once you are a millionaire, or hopefully a multimillionaire, you rise above all that, and your life is so dramatically different. I'm not saying life is only about money, don't get me wrong, but it's just a lot easier. I can't say it any other way. And I really think, given the fact that you bought this DVD, you want to make millions too. And that's a good thing. Don't listen to these communists and say you don't need money, or these hippies. Money helps, okay? End of story. For me, it was a Lamborghini, but you can choose any symbol to represent your financial goals. Maybe you like Ferraris, or you want to have a big house, or a family photo to represent taking care of your loved ones. Or, you can look at some unpaid bills, or a charity, or pictures of beaches and, historical landmarks to represent your dream of traveling the world. It is your choice. Whatever symbol, whatever photo that you can look at will get you motivated and being like, I'm going to do this. I know it sounds stupid. I know you're like, Tim, shut up with all this stuff. I'm already motivated. Just get to the good stuff. Well, this stuff matters. You can't glaze over it. And for too long, I was just teaching stock patterns and, here's a good stock, here's a bad stock. And people weren't really getting the whole journey part, the whole path. And I need you to understand that this is a journey. One stock is not going to get you to millionaire status, not two, not three, not even probably 100 or maybe not even 1,000 stocks. So you need to really understand the journey entirely. And having a symbol to work towards, a carrot at the end, that helps the whole time. It does sound silly, but visuals help since the path to millions is filled with frustration along the way. It's so common. I can't even tell you how many stories I've heard of people giving up. But truly great success involves failure, it involves mistakes, and it involves stress. You're not going to have a stress-free ride to $1,000,000. I guarantee you that. And you're not going to not make any mistakes along the way. You will. You'll make mistakes. You'll have stress, and sometimes you will fail. But if you keep everything in perspective and you keep, just on the right path towards your goal, none of that stuff will stop you from achieving your goals. So I want you to turn mistakes and stress into opportunity, because stress, mistakes, failures, guess what? They teach you what not to do. You learn. You cannot let these setbacks make you quit. They help mold you. They help develop you. And frankly, you wouldn't be as good of a trader or a person or a millionaire, whatever you want to be, without these, because you'll remember them, okay? Don't let fear hold you back. Don't be afraid of saying, oh my God, what if I make a mistake? I don't even want to begin if I'm going to make a mistake. You need to change your mindset and do things differently to enjoy a different outcome. I get stories from people all over the world, and what I teach is based on what I think will really help people the most take it to the next level. Because almost everybody who emails me, and if you're watching this DVD, you probably want to be a millionaire and be a multimillionaire. And you're not already, most likely. I'm sure there are some, and it never hurts to study even if you already are a millionaire. But most people want this, and they don't know what to do to get there. So what you have to do is something different from what you've been doing. If you're not a millionaire, and let's say you've spent 10, 20, 30 years of your life trying to be a millionaire and you haven't gotten there, guess what? You're going to have to try something different to get there, because what you've been trying does not work. So my question to you is, how badly do you want to succeed? This is a very, very important question. Are you comfortable with your current life, or do you want more? Some people are very comfortable with their current life and they're like, yeah, Tim, just give me a few hot stock picks. I'm not just interested in giving you a few hot stock picks. I want to teach you to truly change your life to something better. If you enjoy some success, will you be comfortable with just a little success? Or do you want to keep wanting more? And how much more? When does it ever end? Multimillionaires understand the path to true wealth takes time, but you can't get too comfortable along the way. Now, that's not to say, if you make 5 or 10 million and you cut it off and you say, okay, I don't want to trade anymore, I've achieved my goals. That's awesome. If you've achieved your goals and that's enough for you, that's great. For me, I see endless opportunities in the stock market. I have to control myself not to try and take advantage of all these opportunities. I have to think of myself as like a retired trader, and I only come back into the stock market when there's an opportunity good enough. And that's actually one of my secrets to success. We'll get into that later. But there's always going to be money-making opportunities. The question is, will you be prepared to truly capitalize on it? There's going to be good plays, there's going to be bad plays, there's going to be new trends, new products, new stocks, every single day, every single week, every single month. That's not to say that there's an amazing trade every single day, week, or month, but there's always going to be something happening in the stock market. And the question is, will you be ready? Will you be best prepared to take advantage and capture that opportunity? Are you going to let it slip by? I don't know the answer. This is totally up to you. I can give you the rules, the patterns, the lessons, but you must act for yourself, because I don't trade or invest for anyone else. I can put you on the right track, but you are in control of you. You choose how much or little you want to study, how much or little you want to push yourself. There are some people who are like, Tim, I'm going to study all the time. And then they study, maybe 30 minutes a day. And they're like, I have school, I have work, I have family, I have pets, I have travel. Endless excuses. And that's fine. But you are in control of your schedule. Ask yourself, If studying an extra hour per day increases your odds of being a millionaire by 25%, would you do it? What if 2 hours per day upped your odds by 50%? The answer is different for everybody. There's no one right answer, you know? If you can only study an hour a day, then study an hour a day. If you can study 4 hours a day, then by all means do that. The more you study, the better you understand these concepts and grasp these rules. That ups your odds of becoming a millionaire. That ups your odds of success on every single trade. That's why I want you learning everything as much as possible before you trade. And I know some people just like, oh, I'll learn on my way. You know, it's like, you know, you just throw the baby in the pool and he'll learn to swim. And that's just not good for the stock market. I don't want you testing the stock market without rules, without, you know, specific goals, because that's not going to give you success. You're just going to waste money. You're going to waste time. It's pretty random, actually. You know, if you don't have very specific, meticulous plans in the stock market, you will get random results. Trust me on that. To be the most successful, you must utilize patterns and rules that have made others successful. If you're just buying random stocks and shorting random stocks and taking random tips, that is not the way to making millions that I have found. If you break patterns and habits, you need to break them the ones that have not created success. Let me repeat this because I said it kind of all messed up. I'm kind of amped up just getting, you know, I've worked on this DVD for so long and now I'm finally recording it. So break patterns and habits that have not created success. Because experts see things newbies and unsuccessful people don't. It's the truth. Experts are better than newbies. I'm sorry to be harsh, but if you have an expert, and an expert in the stock market is defined by somebody who has made a lot of money, and ideally you can see all their trades, you can see their track record, you can see their wins and losses, and it's not just about making a lot of money. You can make a lot of money and not necessarily be an expert. You could just be lucky, and you know, you might have $1 million profit here, then lose $500,000, and then make $1 million, and then lose $500,000. You're making a lot, but you're risking a lot, and just one time where you're wrong, you can get wiped out. So an expert should be able to minimize their losses. Train your brain to embrace this new information and strategy, and what you previously thought was impossible becomes possible. I know this is a big sentence, but if you really train your brain and you start saying, wait a minute, Tim's not full of BS. I know I have my haters who think I'm full of BS, but given the fact that I show all my trades and my top students' trades and all of these rules and patterns that seem to work again and again, just train your brain and say, wait a minute, let me give Tim the benefit of the doubt, because he has been trading for 15 years and he has been teaching for 6 years and he now does have documented success in both fields. So train your brain to trust me and embrace this new information. And what you previously thought impossible, you know, turning a few thousand into a few million in a few years, it becomes possible. But you need to really have an open mind. I hate people who say, oh, Tim, I'll watch your DVD, but it's impossible. And they just have this terrible, narrow-minded view, and they don't really give it a chance. So I'm just asking you for you to give it a chance. You know, I'm not asking you to risk your hard-earned money in the stock market. I don't want you to do that. But watch this whole DVD, see what I have to say, and try and train your brain to just allow for the possibility that I might be right. The following rules have created several millionaires, but it's not enough to just kinda study them. You must truly understand and adopt them for the best results. The more you study and utilize these methods, the better your odds of success. Most traders have no chance of making millions because they are on the no plan, as exemplified by random trades and results. These rules that I'm going to get to, I know I'm building them up, but these rules are not just like, sometimes they work. You will see that they work again and again and again, and you must be disciplined. You know, picture somebody in the army, like your drill sergeant, teaching you how to fire a weapon. It is not optional to say, oh, I'll fire my weapon this way. You know, if you fire the weapon the wrong way, someone will get hurt. And in finance and in stock trading, that person will be you if you do not follow key trading rules. And you must plan, you know. Practice over and over and over and over and over again. Practice does make perfect. Following rules, making disciplined trades, growing your account gradually but surely. That is the secret to making millions. So my question to you is, are you ready to change your life right now? My way of looking at the stock market is likely very different from what you've heard. But guess what? Different is good. If you look at the stock market the same way and you do the same thing that everyone else does, you're going to lead to the same dismal results. These are real stats. You can look them up. I don't even know where I've seen them. I've seen them in like 5 different academic studies. 80 to 90% of traders lose. It's actually probably closer to 90, maybe even 95% of traders lose. And 96% of professional money managers fail to beat the major stock market indices consistently. Over 70% plus lose year over year versus the major stock market indices. And the major stock market indices go up maybe 5 or 10% per year on average. So just think about these statistics for a second. And, I wanted to be a professional money manager when I was growing up. That was my goal. And then I got a little smarter and I was like, wait a minute, I don't want to try and just beat the S&P 500 by 1 or 2% per year. What good is that? And I've met many mutual fund managers and hedge fund managers over the years, and it's their entire goal to be number one in their category and beat whatever index they're trying to beat. That's it. And that's a sad, sad, sad life. And they bank. They make millions of dollars per year. If I can make a DVD, how to make millions by just being pretty much average. You just be a mutual fund manager or a hedge fund manager, and you dress up in a suit and tie and you talk about how this is the year for China and how gold is going down and how you're perfectly positioned. And none of that really matters because it's all a guessing game and the odds of success suck. And this is why most traders lose. So I don't want you acting like that, and I don't want you thinking like that. The way that I think is very, very different. I'm very, very different. Play that 2 Chainz song. I was going to say Jew Chains. If I was a rapper, my rapper name would be Jew Chains. But play that 2 Chainz song over and over again. Yeah, I'm different. Yeah, I'm different. Be different. Think different. That's how you really make your mark on the world. I don't want to teach you just to make $1 million in management fees every single year and beat the S&P 500 by 0.5% or 1%. That job is filled thousands of times over. I know you want to make $1 million, but come on, let's make $1 million and be self-sufficient and do something special. Even if I beat the major indices every year and I make, let's say, 15 to 30% per year, I am not happy. Because 15 to 30% per year, while it's great for mutual funds, it's great for hedge fund managers, they're going to be number one in their asset class. They're going to raise tens, if not hundreds of millions, or maybe even billions of dollars more, and then they'll make their 1 or 2% management fees. That does not create wealth anytime soon for people with small accounts. So I say, screw traditional investing and their dismal annual returns. You might get rich by the time you're Warren Buffett's age, and then you can purchase the best hip surgery money can buy. That is the sad truth. I have created millionaires from scratch within 5 years. I want more. Even if you're 70 years old watching this, I want you to be a millionaire by the time you're 75, not by the time you're 100. Making 15 to 30% per year, I know that's great. I know that's what finance and CNBC and Street.com and Bloomberg and all these big-time multi-billion-dollar financial corporations are all about. Teaching you how to beat the markets by 1 or 2% or 5% per year. That is not going to make you rich anytime soon. And they look down on me because they say, oh, it's impossible to turn a few thousand into a few million. It's too risky. You must be a scam. And they use that voice for whatever reason. I'm not a scam. I've done it, and now several of my students have done it. And I'm making this guide so that you can do it. Don't think about companies and stocks as long-term investments. Use the stock prices only to increase your wealth quickly. Now, this is a revolutionary concept. Most people look at the stocks and they're like, oh, I'm going to invest in Under Armour. I wear their clothes all the time. I'm going to, invest in Starbucks. I drink their coffee all the time. When I was going on CNBC, they wanted me to have between 15 and 20 stock picks at all times. Just random companies talking about, okay, they're expanding into Latin America. Here's their main product. Good. That's a good pick. And, one simple story, one new product, it doesn't make you rich. That's basic stock picking. And most people who do basic stock picking lose money. And they don't make extraordinary gains. And especially not extraordinary gains very quickly. My strategy is under the radar and ignored by Wall Street since it can only make you a few $1,000,000. Not hundreds of millions, not billions of dollars like all the smartest people want. That's why stock picking is so much fun, especially big companies like Starbucks. You can buy 1,000,000 shares tomorrow and invest, 20, 30, 50, $100 million. And if you're right over, let's say, a year or two and you make 10 or 20 million on that one pick, but you need tens or hundreds of millions of dollars to start with. That's what mutual funds and hedge funds do. For me, my strategy really works with the smallest of accounts. I didn't choose it. Trust me, I did not grow up to be like, oh, I want to grow up to be a penny stock trader or a penny stock trading teacher. That was not in my plan. I wanted to be one of those mutual fund managers with a nice suit and tie, buying very good companies like GE and sleeping well at night. But that's not what I find works. What I find works is the low-hanging fruit in the US stock market. Penny stocks. Stocks that no mutual funds or hedge funds rarely ever touch. And that makes them inefficiently priced. And that creates opportunity for smaller accounts. And the fact that I've made millions of dollars and you can hear, I'm not even that smart. My millionaire students are smarter than me, and I purposely started teaching because I said, you know what, if I can make a few $1,000,000 with this, let me just throw the strategy out there. What can other people do? I'm curious. And from what I hear from my international students, that these patterns and rules work in international markets too. I have a student who trades Bitcoin, and he says he's made $250,000 with the patterns that I teach here, trading Bitcoin, which has nothing to do with penny stocks. But I guess it works. I don't know. I really have not had the time to explore that. I'm a little overwhelmed as it is, thanks to my existing millionaire students getting a lot of press on Fox and CNN and the stories going viral. But it's cool. There's so much money to be made. All I want to do is show you the rules and throw out what I've learned to you. And then you can take with it what you want. You can throw away some of my rules, say, oh, I don't like it. Here are some ones that I do. For me, for my top students, what has worked best is taking a look at every single one of my rules. And only after you're successful do you start deviating and say, okay, this fits my personality better. For now, 99% of you watching this follow the rules strictly. But also know the limitations. I know my limitations and the limitations of my strategy and teachings. This DVD is not called How to Make Billions. So if you want to make billions, stop watching this DVD because it won't make you that. And it's good to know your limits. You should also try various strategies to push the boundaries, but know your limitations. And when I first made my $1,000,000 when I was back in college, I had no idea the limitations. I had gone from 12,000 to 1.65 million in 4 years, and I was like, oh, 4 years more and I'll get to 100 million. And I didn't understand the limitations with my strategy. I had a hedge fund which had $3 million, but I discovered I'm a better teacher than trader. That's true. I'm not ashamed to admit it, especially running a hedge fund. Sometimes I would take lunch meetings to try and meet with the clients to raise more money, and I'd miss a trade, and then I'd feel guilty. So then another time I'd cancel a lunch meeting with a potential investor and trade, and then feel forced to trade because now I've canceled the meeting, and then the trade would go splat because I'm trying to force it and trying to make money, and I just wasn't a very good hedge fund manager. I was still #1 ranked in my asset class, but I'm just a better teacher. And the cool thing is that I have learned to make more money and more importantly, live a more fulfilling life teaching than just trading alone and managing money for rich snobs. That is the truth. Every single person that I met with, they're just rich, and I don't get along with rich people. I don't know if it's my personality, if it's my upbringing, whatever. But I love teaching, people who are in the middle class and in the lower class, and to try and, bring you up to the upper class. I think that is a very cool thing to do, and it's very, very fulfilling. And I found out that I'm actually really good at it. I still make millions of dollars trading, as you can see from this year's gains especially, but teaching brings a whole new level to this. Everybody wants to make millions, but most don't want to study first and learn exactly how to do it. I cannot encourage you enough to watch this DVD, to watch my video lessons. If you're a trading challenge student, watch my webinars before you start trading big. If you really want to start trading, trade with like 100 shares to get your feet wet. But if you learn the rules, if you learn the patterns, and you have this in your mind, every single trade you do, you have better odds on. And whether you're a man, woman, child in the US, Asia, Europe, South America, Africa, no matter your intelligence, math skills, or finances, the rules are simple and easy to learn and follow. So I know I'm saying this a lot, but what I found is that repeating this stuff gets it through to your heads. If I say it once, you're just like, yeah, next. Well, I'm going to say it again and again. Study these rules and this guidebook incessantly before risking your hard-earned money in the stock market. I know you paid good money for this DVD, and my trading challenge students and people who pay for my video lessons, but the money that costs you for education is so small compared to the money that you can make on one trade, or more importantly, the money you can lose when you don't know the rules. The market has a tuition, and the market tuition is infinitely more than any of my educational products. So I don't want you to get into that issue. And I know that a lot of people do. Sadly, a lot of people don't believe me at first. They see my Lamborghini, they see, my pictures somewhere. Maybe they hear about me because now I have this weekly newspaper column, but they start trading first. And then they learn the hard way, wait a minute, probably shouldn't have done that. And then they lose 10, 20, 30, 50, $100,000. Then they come to me and their confidence is broken. And that's okay, it's better late than never, but I just want to try and prevent you that kind of hardship. I hate hearing from people who have lost 5 and 6. One guy even lost 7 figures before he came to me. I'm not like all-knowing, but the rules that I teach will help prevent that, and that is very valuable. More importantly, these rules that I teach have proven to grow small accounts exponentially. As I've talked about, I don't care about making 5, 10, 15, 30% per year. I don't have like this diversified portfolio where I have 20 magic stocks. I think that's all BS. What I do is very specific, very tactical. I'm like a sniper. I have 1 or 2 stocks at a time, and I try and be right for various reasons, whether I'm long or short, as you'll learn in a sec. But by being a sniper, by aiming small, missing small, here or there, keeping the rest of the account in cash, you can grow your account exponentially, trade after trade after trade. It adds up, as you'll see. The stock market and trading stocks can be very scary without an understanding of the rules to beating it. No different than driving without paying attention to traffic rules or traffic signs. You can't ignore road signs or else you're going to likely crash. I'm basically just a glorified driving instructor, and I'm teaching you these rules as traffic lights, stop, yield, speed limit. Follow the rules and enjoy the ride. Those of us who do like driving, I love driving my Lamborghini and my Porsche. I'm very fortunate to have these cars, but I still obey the rules. No matter what car you have, you can't just go 300 miles an hour on a turn. You can't just go through red lights and swerve over lines. You have to pay attention to traffic rules. And these rules that I'm about to teach you, these are stock market rules, and they're now proven several times over to create millionaires from scratch. Picture my millionaire students as very successful drivers. I know that the stock market can be scary. I know that trading can be very scary, and especially penny stocks when these stocks are moving up and down and you don't know what's going on. I know it's scary. But after you have watched this guide, hopefully it won't be that scary. Maybe you'll have to watch this guide twice or 3 times. But I am your driving instructor. I will teach you safe driving. if you follow this analogy. I will teach you safe trading. Even though I've made millions of dollars trading penny stocks, which sounds crazy and risky, I'm actually a very conservative trader. I value safety first and foremost. Now I know I'm saying learn the rules, and I haven't told you the rules of the game yet. Trust me, I'm getting to that. But first, I need to give you this intro to get you in the right mindset. I can tell you the rules, but I've done this for so many years where I know if I tell you the rules and you don't have the right perspective, it's useless. They don't get through to you. They're not as effective. So I'm preparing you. This is a very important point right here. You don't need to be right on every trade. This is a very awesome thing because even though I've made millions and several of my students and friends have made millions, none of us are right on every trade. Not even 90%, not even 80% of the time. We're in the 60s and 70% of the time. So I want you to study and create a working model for yourself and then refine it and make it work best for you. When you see the rules that I'm about to present to you and the patterns, you take what you like. You say, wait a minute, this fits my personality really well. You know, I'm an impatient guy. I only want to hold the stock for a day. Or some of you might be like, you know what? This is a scam. I'm going to bet against this scam and I'm just going to hold for like a week or two because that makes more sense to my brain. Whatever works for you. My millionaire students and I, we have each made lots of money, but we've done it in slightly different ways. And that's kind of the cool thing. You know, we're not all just trading the exact same stocks at the exact same time. This is even more important. If you believe, it will happen. There is such great power in belief. I'm going to repeat myself because this is very important. You know, when I was being brought up by my parents, and God bless them, they made me think I could achieve anything. And that's why I have this just awesome self-confidence inside of me. And some people were not raised that way. And their parents talked down to them, and you know, life has gotten them down, and they don't actually believe that it'll happen to them. You have to believe, because otherwise, subconsciously, you know, you're going to kind of self-destruct because you're going to be like, oh, this stock is looking great. But I screw up at everything. I'm going to screw this up. No, you don't have to think like that. If you study enough, if you prepare enough, it becomes mechanical. And no matter how big of a screw up you are or have been in the past, you can change. This knowledge can change your life. So start by making a list of the steps needed to achieve your goals. Judging by the title of this DVD, How to Make Millions, I'm guessing your goals are financial and you want to be a millionaire or a multi-millionaire. That's awesome. A lot of people say that's bad. You know, they want you to only help people and not think so much about money. Well, I'm sorry. Money makes the world go around. And when you have millions of dollars, you have an easier and better life. It doesn't guarantee happiness, but life is easier. So I want you to think of this as a journey. There's going to be setbacks along the way, as I've already talked about, but don't be scared of mistakes. Embrace them and learn what not to do. You're going to learn what to do and learn what not to do. And gradually over time, you're going to learn how to do what to do more than what not to do. And that's how you grow. That's how you grow your account. That's how you grow your knowledge. So let me tell you about what I've done. I turned $12,415 into $1.65 million in 4 years, senior year of high school and college. And along the way, I also lost like $50,000 to $200,000 several times. So even though I made over $1 million overall, even including the losses, I had setbacks along the way. That's why I bring this up. I have now made $4.2 million with my trading strategy, trading with smaller dollar amounts the past 6 years since my focus is on teaching. A lot of people say, Tim, you're awfully confident for somebody who's just made $4 million over 15 years. That doesn't average out to that much. Well, you have to understand that for me, I have gone up and down with the amount of money that I manage. And I love teaching. And teaching requires me to trade with less money because, frankly, I'm doing video lessons, I'm narrating, I'm trying to send out trade alerts, I'm trying to send out commentary. All this stuff I wouldn't do if I was just trading for myself. It takes away time, it takes away my focus. And it's not the end of the world, but you have to recognize that. and I don't like trading with big dollar amounts. If I'm trying to juggle $1 million position and trying to send out a trade alert, it's kind of conflicting. So even though I've only made 4.2 million, if I wasn't teaching, I probably would be at like 10 million. And that's not to like brag, that's just to say, look, this can actually make you, 8 figures, not just 7. But my top trading challenge student, Tim Grittani, has turned $1,500 into 2.2 million in 4 years. And he was featured on Fox and CNN with me. Tim G was my second millionaire student after Michael Good surpassed $1 million in profits in just 5 years. And Michael Good, there's a great blog post when he first found out about me, and he wrote, Tim Sykes is full of BS, because he's like, oh, this guy teaches penny stocks and he's using DVDs. And it sounds sketchy. I'm used to people thinking that I'm sketchy or a scam. But he gave me a chance, and I think he's at 1.4 million now. In just a few years, he's also moderator of my chat room, and he's my co-mentor for other trading challenge students. Both Tim Grittani and Michael Good give weekly, Michael Good gives weekly webinars. Tim Grittani gives bi-monthly webinars to trading challenge students. But they've made a lot of money. It's changed their life, and now they're giving back. And I absolutely love that. Again, it all sounds impossible, fraudulent, or lucky. And that's why my top students and I, Michael Good, Tim Grittani, even a lot of the other students who are getting closer to $1 million, we all show every trade publicly on profit.ly. Some of our trades are bigger than others, but if you look at our average profit per trade, it's only $1,000 to $2,000. That's it. This is kind of an aha moment for a lot of you guys where, turning a few thousand into a few million sounds like this incredible task. Well, all kind of crazy tasks sound impossible until you break it down piece by piece. You don't have a little pee-wee football player that gets to the NFL all easily, okay? There's many steps along the way. Junior high school football, college football, training camps. You have to do a whole bunch of stuff to achieve your goals. But the cool thing is that with my strategy and with these rules that I'm building up to, all you have to do is make $1,000 or $2,000 per trade over and 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 over again. Whew! I couldn't breathe for a second. That's all you have to do, and that is my job, to teach you how to make $1,000 or $2,000 per trade. And that makes my job a lot easier, because I don't know how to make, frankly, like $500,000 or $1 million in a trade. I don't go that big. I don't bet that big. I don't know. What I do know, and what I've really become an expert on, is how to make $1,000 to $2,000 per trade. Sometimes I bet 5,000, sometimes I bet 10,000, but I have an average profit per trade, and I have a goal in my mind. So a lot of the time, if a trade is working out perfectly and I'm up $2,000, sometimes I just take it just because I'm like, wait a minute, I've hit my average. And those of you who are my long-term subscribers know I very often take profits too quickly. But I know what it takes to make $2,000. And for me, because that is my average, it's really tough. The other day, I was shorting this blatant pump and dump, and I was making $7,600 as it turned out. And I just took it because I was like, wow, I'm up 7,000 in a day. That's awesome. And I totally forgot all my rules. I forgot about the pattern. And, by the end of the day, it would have been about a $40,000 profit. So can I really complain about making 7,000 in a day? No. Just so you know, I don't time things perfectly. Very far from it for those of you who have been studying with me for a while. But that's not the end of the world. It's a good problem to have, to make only $7,600 in a day, or to make only $1,000 or $2,000 in a day. And again, do the math. I'm not great at math, but even I know this. If you make $1,000, 1,000 separate times, 1,000 times 1,000, that's $1 million. That's how you make $1 million. Understand this, Tim Grittani's winning percentage is 72%. My winning percentage is 73%. Michael Good only wins 62% of the time. So we are nowhere near perfect. And we are nowhere near, somebody who makes $10, $20, $50,000 per trade. We're making smaller trades, but we're winning more than we lose. And here's where it gets important. The key to turning thousands into millions is cutting losses quickly when you're wrong, which is inevitable. If the ideal profits per trade are only $1,000 to $2,000, you cannot have big losses that erase those profits. I enunciate it because it is so important. If you're only making $1,000 or $2,000 on average per trade, and remember we're winning 60, 70, 75% of the time, you cannot have $10, $20, $30, $50,000 losses. That's going to wipe out too many trades. It's going to wipe out your confidence. It might wipe out your account. So number one rule, and I'll get to all of the rules in order of importance in a little bit, but rule number one is to cut losses quickly so that any kinds of losses are smaller than your dollar gains. To achieve maximum success, your dollar gains must be bigger than your dollar losses. I know this is confusing a lot of you. I know I'm getting ahead of myself. I tend to do that, but soon I'll go into the basics of how stock trading works, but I want you to start to think of this as a string of trades, and this is a journey, okay? Trade by trade. Maybe some trade lasts a day, maybe one trade lasts a few hours, sometimes trades only last a few minutes. But no matter what, when you look at all of these trades in a row, you want your profits on each trade to be bigger than your losses on each trade. And it's okay to have a lot of losses as long as the losses are small. Get used to taking $50 to $100, sometimes even $500 losses as long as your average dollar gains are bigger than your losses overall. I get it. Sometimes, you're going to be in a trade, you might have work or class or, something goes wrong. I've done fat finger mistakes where I push the wrong button and I buy 5,000 shares instead of 500 shares. I've had all sorts of crazy stuff happen. So sometimes, you're going to have a crazy loss that will be bigger. But I'm talking about on average. When you look at your trades, if you look at, let's say, 20 trades that you're going to make, and let's say you're going to be right 60% of the time, so you'll make money on like 12 of them, right? On those 8 losses, you want the $8 losses, the losses on average of those 8 trades to be smaller than the dollar profits that you have on your 12 trades. So if you're winning 60 or 70% of the time and you're losing less money in terms of dollar losses on the 30 or 40%, you're obviously going to make money. This is the beautiful thing about math, and I'll go into this in more detail, but just start thinking about this. Cut losses quickly. Cut losses quickly. Cut losses quickly. If you sleepwalk and sleep talk, I want you to sleepwalk and sleep talk, and I want your parents or your wife or your girlfriend or your boyfriend to hear you saying, cut losses quickly. Cut losses quickly. This is not optional. Remember, 80 to 90% of traders lose money. And most of those people who lose money blow up their entire accounts. I've seen it in other newsletters. I've seen it in other chat rooms. I haven't seen it in my newsletter. I haven't seen it in my chat room because my rule number one is to cut losses quickly. So it's almost impossible to lose all of your money with me. That's not to say that it is impossible because anything can happen in the stock market. This is risky. But if you're in the mindset where once you're in a trade and you're almost automatically like, oh my God, I'm so scared, I sometimes use a voice, and you'll get used to this. I sometimes say, trade like a castrated choir boy. I know that's a weird voice and a weird analogy, but trade like you have no guts whatsoever. When I'm in a trade, my money is working electronically and I don't have control of it. I am ready to get out at a moment's notice if the stock isn't doing what I want. That's how crazy I am. And that is endlessly frustrating to a lot of people because they're like, come on, Tim, you get into the stock, you want to see how it plays out, give it some time. But for me, and again, I'm having a record year in 2014 with no big losses for the first time in my career. So I'm feeling better about this strategy than ever. For me, I want to cut losses so quickly, just in case of anything happening. In that way, I protect myself from disaster. No trade is good enough for me to risk disaster. And I think that is such an important rule, especially when you're learning to trade, because disaster can really set you back confidence-wise, account size-wise, dollar loss-wise. You don't want disasters, so cut losses quickly. Let me just repeat this because this is so important. To become a millionaire, you do not always have to pick the right stocks or even trade them well every time. But you do have to keep your losses small when you are wrong to stay on the $1 million profit trajectory. $1+ million is achievable within 4 to 5 years. I don't care if you even have $1,000 or $5,000 to your name. You do not have to wait 40 to 50 years as most financial advisors and long-term investors aim for. And most people, if you become a millionaire over 40 years in the stock market, you're doing better than the vast majority of people in the world. If I have to wait 40 years to make $1 million, I am very unhappy. I was spoiled making my first million, 1.65 million to be exact, in the first 4 years when I was barely old enough to drink. And I somehow think that every single person can do that no matter what kind of market because of the rules that I am about to teach you. Earning 15 to 30% is a goal for hedge funds and mutual funds, not for people with small accounts who want to be millionaires. And I'll show you some math where if you make 20% on your money every year, you ain't getting rich anytime quickly. And I don't like that. And sadly, that is what most people think about the stock market because they don't understand that there is a huge advantage when you have a small account. Most people think, oh, I have a small account, I have such a disadvantage. No, you're like a sniper as opposed to the freaking British army back during the Revolutionary War. They couldn't hide in trees. You can hide in trees with your small account. You're guerrilla warfare. It works. Again, each $1,000 to $2,000 profit per trade not only helps grow a small account, it allows you to take bigger positions and teaches you important lessons too. So $1,000 to $2,000, I know in the real world you might be like, I can make this working a normal day job. Why do I care about 1,000 or two? But again, for this, it's understanding that making $1,000 or $2,000 again and again and again and again, and then if your account size grows, then you can try and make 3,000 or 4,000, and then when you first start, maybe your goal is just to make $100 or $200 just to get your account up. The $1,000 to $2,000 on average profit per trade is over the course of your entire $0 to $1 million journey. So don't even feel pressured when you have a small account to make $1,000 on a trade if your account size is only $1,000. But as your account grows, this usually in the past, and again, past performance is not indicative of future returns, but usually is indicative of what it takes to become a millionaire. And you have to do it 1,000 times. And then you also have to account for losses. So probably you have to do it maybe like 1,500 times. When you achieve it once, try to achieve it repeatedly. It does get easier over time with practice. This is a very, very beautiful thing. Once you learn how to make, 100 or 200 and then 500 or 700 and then 1,000 or 2,000 off the same patterns, you can do it again and again when the right trade pops up. And as you'll see, I don't trade every single day. I wait for these setups to appear. And then I kind of say, wait, I've seen this a few, tens of thousands of times, so I try and profit the best I can. I want you to study the ultimate trade setups that have gotten us these kinds of gains and then replicate them. Unlike most traders, I don't have, 5 computer screens. I don't look at like 500 different stocks. I don't have like 5 or 10 or 20 positions at a time. I am very much like a sniper. I usually have 1 or 2 positions at a time, and a lot of the time I have no positions. I am waiting for a pattern that I have seen over and over again, and by the end of this DVD, you will be sick to death of these patterns. You'll be like, God, Tim, it's the same thing over and over and over again. But the cool thing is, by the time you finish this DVD, you'll have also listen to videos from my millionaire students, and Tim Grittani in particular gives a great presentation where he talks about how the secret to his success, turning a few $1,000s into a few million, is because he focuses on one or two patterns again and again and again. And the same pattern that he used to make $1,000 when his account is bigger, he uses that same exact pattern and he made over $200,000 in one day. That is the beauty of growing your account and being able to take bigger positions. So break down what works best for millionaires, and then I want you to try. Every $50 to $500 loss is a slight setback, but just small setbacks and actually great and useful lessons. Every millionaire I know has taken big losses in the past, but we learned to minimize them over time. Again, as I said, big losses hurt your confidence, account size, and prevent you from partaking in other opportunities with the right mindset. We can be wrong on any trade, but we must also control losses, stay disciplined, and stay on the right path. I know by this point in the presentation, you're saying, okay, Tim, tell me the rules. I'm tired of hearing about the path and how you have to control losses. I don't even know what you're talking about. I'm getting you in the right mindset. Think of your journey on how to make millions as a path. And just like Candyland, sometimes you go 3 steps forward and then 1 step back. But you're still going forwards overall. The problem comes when, you go 3 steps forward and then like 10 steps back, and then 2 steps forward and then 20 steps back. That's heading in the wrong direction, and that really screws everything up. So you cannot let that happen. Before I even get into the rules and the patterns, I want to humble you that even the best traders, like several of my millionaire students and friends, we are not right more than 2/3 or 3/4 of the time at most. And we've been doing this for years. Some of us have been doing this for decades. So for you, if you're just starting a few weeks, a few months in, or maybe a few years in, there's almost no way that you're going to be right more than 50 or 60% of the time. And the only way that you cannot give up and not get discouraged is to understand that this is a journey, this is a process. As you'll hear, Tim Grittani lost money for the first few months as he was trying to understand the rules. He was trying to figure out, what patterns to play, how to trade, what position sizes to take, and he lost. And he is my single best student. So if my single best student loses pretty consistently for the first 6 months, guess how you're going to do? You're probably going to do the exact same thing, but I don't want you quitting. It's tough to lose. I tell this story with Pete Sampras. Pete Sampras was one of the best young tennis players in America, but his new coach said, you know what, Pete, I think he was like top 5 in the nation when he was like 14 or 15. And his new coach said, guess what, Pete? I don't want you to practice to try and win matches. I want you hitting the ball as hard as you can every single time, no matter how far out the ball goes. And Pete is like, but if I try and hit the ball, as hard as I can, it's going to go out and I'm going to lose the match. And the coach said, hey, Pete, think about your future, okay? Trust me. Think about overall what you want to do in the tennis world. And Pete said, okay, I want to be the best, so I'll listen to you. And for the first few months of this strategy, his ranking crashed. He fell from one of the top players in the US to, I think, in the top like 500. And everyone's like, oh, well, there goes another, one-hit wonder. Like, they thought he was going to be a great tennis player. Now he can't control the ball. He's hitting every single ball out. And meanwhile, as he was hitting the ball as hard as he could every single time, trusting his coach, he gradually got better and he got control. And because he didn't play to win the current matches, he played in order to think about his future. He gradually found his control, and when he did, he hit the ball harder than anybody else, and he became #1 in the world at the youngest age. I think he won the US Open, before he could legally drink. And that is what you have to think of this as. I am your coach, and I am telling you to hit the ball as hard as you can. Don't go into this thinking that you're going to make money right away. Don't go into this thinking that you're going to be right on every single trade right away. Think about this as a learning experience at first. If my top student loses consistently for the first few months, you will probably do the exact same thing, if not worse. And the only thing that will keep you in this game is to cut losses quickly and think of this as a future path, a journey, rather than something where you have to learn it all in the first few months, and if it doesn't work, you're going to give up. Because I've seen that happen too much, and I hate it. There are so many people out there with such great potential, but they don't understand the whole arc of this, of what I'm trying to accomplish and how I've created millionaires. The millionaires, the people who have made six figures with me, and more importantly than just money, the people who have become the most self-sufficient, they want to learn and they are willing to give it time. So please, please, please give this time. Understand that you're going to be wrong a lot. But if you lose a small amount of money and you protect your overall account and you say, okay, I mean, don't go into a trade and say you're going to lose money, and don't say, oh, I want to lose money. It's okay. Try and make money. But understand that you probably will screw up somehow and you probably will lose. And that is okay. Just saying it out loud. I lost today. It's okay. Versus someone who's saying, oh my God, I lost again. I hate this. I can't do this. I can't do anything right. Understand that most traders always lose. But if you have the right mindset, the right perspective now, and you say, okay, I'm going to lose a little, but I'm going to learn what not to do. And I'm going to use this information to get better over time. Keep detailed notes on every trade. I want to get you started doing this from the get-go. This is why I created Profitly, so that you could annotate every single trade, especially losses, to learn what not to do. If you can write 1 or 2 paragraphs per trade, that would be best. I know this is time consuming. I'll give you examples of students who have failed at this, and I think that they're worse off, but I'll give you examples of students who do this, and they keep track of every trade. If you're going to put your hard-earned money in the stock market, you better really analyze it and see what you're doing right and see what you're doing wrong. You have to take this seriously. Treat it like a business. Do not treat this like gambling, like random gambling, or most people who trade penny stocks like lotto tickets where they think they're going to invest in a penny stock and it's going to be the next Microsoft. If you want to be successful, you have to do what other people are unwilling to do. And that means analyzing every single trade. The more analytical, the better. Some of my students, and we'll get into this, they do like crazy spreadsheets. I'm not a big fan of spreadsheets. I don't even put in that much time, and I work my ass off. I like to write a paragraph or two. And I also like to look back often at these notes, see what trades work best versus worst. And then you maximize the good trades while minimizing the bad trades. As I said earlier, we are all different. Our personalities, our strengths, our weaknesses. Some of us are better at buying stocks because we're just like, yeah, we're a cheerleader. I like buying this stock. Some of us are better at short selling stocks. Short selling, which I'll get into, is where you're betting on stocks going lower. And if you're cynical like me, I'm a better short seller. And I learned this over time. Losses are painful, but you have to fight the temptation to forget them and sweep them under the rug. Always remember that loss and pain. Remember the Alamo and 9/11. I'm going to add even more right now. Pearl Harbor, Titanic, all great losses, but all of them were used to make us better and stronger. You know, the Alamo really changed the war because some of our best Americans died in that fighting the Mexicans, and you know, that changed the war. Pearl Harbor just crystallized us as a nation to really get into the war. The Titanic, all of these are very sad. The Titanic, you know, so many people died, and that changed shipbuilding and, you know, putting lifeboats so that everybody could escape just in case forever. 9/11, terrible, terrible thing, but it made us stronger as a nation as we look to, you know, make sure that never happened again. And I don't want to get political. I don't mean to bring up anything painful, and I'm sorry for everyone who has lost people and their friends and family in these events, but these are just analogies where you want to try and forget them, but I don't want you to forget great losses or even small losses in the stock market because they make you stronger. And too many people are embarrassed by them. Don't be embarrassed by losses in the stock market. Utilize them. Think about them. Say, hey, I never want that to happen again. I don't want to make that mistake again. Now, you need to realize that losses are part of your market tuition. You want to pay as little tuition as possible, but be sure to get your education. You can't just skip out on this school. And unfortunately, too many people want to avoid losses entirely. But small losses, again, controlling your losses. I know this isn't fun. I know nobody wants to hear this. I know you want to get to all the good stuff first, but that's why I bring this up. How Tim Grittani, self-made millionaire student of mine, at 25 years old, for the first few months, he lost rather consistently. Not every time, not even like 90% or 80% of the time, but he lost. But he kept his losses small. And the small losses help you develop discipline. And they will help you later on when your account is bigger and it matters more. Put everything into perspective. I know a lot of you guys are starting with $1,000, $2,000, $5,000 to your name. If you lose it, I know that sucks. I know if you lose, let's say you have a $5,000 account and you lose like 1,000, you think it's the end of the world. It is not. Okay? Over your lifetime, most of us are going to make 6 figures, if not 7 figures. Over your lifetime. I'm not saying you're going to all make 6 figures in 1 year. I know the world is a very diverse place, and the cool thing about teaching online is that I have students in 70 plus countries now. So I understand, making 6 figures in US dollars sounds like a lot, but over your lifetime, you're probably going to make 6 figures at least, and maybe 7 figures, $1 million over the course of your lifetime. Obviously, you're going to spend it. You have expenses, you have taxes, but just think about how little and insignificant $1,000 is over the course of your lifetime. I know it might sound like a lot to some of you, but you need to think of this as a skill that can really change your whole life. And you have to pay tuition. Obviously, you have my DVDs, video lessons, trading challenge, it costs a little bit. But the market tuition, keeping losses small. I know some people, as I said, who have lost hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars in the market, not understanding to cut losses quickly. I don't want that to be your market tuition. I don't want you to go to college and spend, 6 figures on college. I think that's a waste. And I don't want you to lose 6 or 7 figures in the stock market. I think that's a waste. I think you can develop your skills when you have a small account. That's why it's really great to get started trading when you have a small account, and it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of your life, because then you can kind of experiment and get used to taking small losses. And as your account grows, then, if you're used to taking small losses, you don't worry about it when your account is bigger. And sometimes you have to take a $10,000 loss if you have, a $500,000 account. I know taking a $10,000 loss sounds like a lot, but if you have a $500,000 account, it's very small. Nobody likes this course. The course meaning losses, but it's part of your development, and you aren't ready for millionaire status until you pass these small tests. I want to tell you a quick little story about the best advice I ever received. This was when I was running a hedge fund, and I had never had a big loss. I was batting 1,000, and I was this cocky, 23? Cocky 23-year-old. And I was running my hedge fund, and, I was so impatient at trying to grow this fund because I never had a loss, and I felt like the world was cheating me, that they weren't giving me my shot at running like a big time hedge fund. I'm like, I'm perfect. I know everything. And I wasn't that cocky. I didn't say stuff like that, but in my mind, that's what I was thinking. And I was meeting with all these big time investors, and I remember this one man, his name was Michael, and I went in, I talked with him. I was, you can tell I'm a little enthusiastic, and he could tell. And he's like, after my presentation, he's like, listen, Tim, I love your strategy. I think penny stocks and small cap stocks are very inefficient. I think that there's great opportunity there. I love your strategy. I love your passion. I love your dedication, but I'm not going to give you money. And I was like, what? what are you talking about? You know, and I'm in my head, I'm like, what are you thinking, old man? Come on, give me a chance. And he said, what I'm going to explain to you is that you are not a complete trader yet because you have never been scarred. And I was like, and I'm, you know, at the time I'm thinking this guy's, you know, crazy. He's an idiot. I'm like, just give me, you know, the money to manage. Look at my track record. Look at my returns. And he says, you have not been scarred yet. And until you are truly scarred, you cannot understand the risks that you take. And with that, you know, he sent me packing and I was like out on the street and I, you know, was so confused because we had this really good meeting, really good bond. And, you know, I didn't think much of it at the time because, you know, when you're 23, you're not that introspective. And sure enough, within a year, you know, I got so impatient with my hedge fund not really growing and just being a few $1 million that I tried investing in my best friend's dad's company, which turned out to be a penny stock. I didn't know it was going to be a penny stock when I invested in it. It was a private company. And I got away from what had made me so successful, you know, trading liquid penny stocks where I could get in and out in the same day. And I made this private investment based on the fact that they had this amazing technology. And, you know, it was print at home ticketing, which they basically invented the print at home ticketing concept. So I was right about the technology, but I was wrong about the company. Investing in a family friend's company is never a good idea. Investing in a penny stock long term that you can't get out of is never a good idea. I don't care how revolutionary the technology seems. And, you know, in the end, my hedge fund lost 35% and I lost all my credibility, even though, you know, it didn't, my losses didn't have anything to do with my strategy. You know, I had gotten away from my strategy. I didn't realize how good my trading strategy was and how important my rules were. But the point is that that hedge fund manager who rejected me a few years earlier was 100% dead on. I did not understand the risks I was taking. I was not scarred. And after my hedge fund lost 35%, and I personally lost $500,000 roughly, you know, after taxes, my 1.65 million that I had already made before that, after taxes was like a million, and then I lost roughly half of it. So I lost half my money, and I'm worth roughly $500,000. And I just can't stop thinking about what this guy said. And at first, I was really pissed. You know, if you watch the TV show Wall Street Warriors, you know, you'll see that I was not in a good place when they were filming that reality show. That was when my hedge fund was in the middle of that loss. The hedge fund still finished up 2% per year, contrary to some rumors that I lost everything. You know, because we had been up a solid 60%, but then that 35% loss basically wiped everything out. Profit wise and wiped out my confidence. And that loss was so stinging and it left a scar. And Michael, the old hedge fund manager who I thought was crazy, was dead on right. Before that loss, I was not a complete trader or investor because I did not realize the risks. I was batting 1,000. I thought I was king of the world, and I just wasn't. And it knocked me down to size. And you know, it took me a while to get up, but I did get up. I valued risk management much more, and that made me a better trader. That made me a better investor, and that makes me a better teacher. So, you know, I hope that you don't have to lose $500,000 the way that I did. That really sucked. But if you get scarred and you lose, you know, whatever the dollar amount is, where you hate it and you just feel sick to your stomach. If you watch the movie Invictus, Matt Damon is like the captain of his rugby team for South Africa, and they're such a bad team, and they, you know, lose a game, and he makes them all drink beer, and he's like, taste that beer. And they don't want to drink the beer. The beer should be for celebration. But they drink the beer, and he's like, you taste that beer, it tastes disgusting. That's the taste of defeat. Never taste it again. And they all throw the beer down, and eventually, you know, they go on to win and you know, make South Africa a complete nation. True story. But you need to have those kinds of losses. So I know this is not fun. I know you want to know, how do you make millions? Don't tell me how to lose. But the process of learning how to make millions includes the process of learning how to lose and how to lose small. And this is so important. I can't even spend enough time. I should probably have a whole DVD called How to Lose Small. no one would buy it because they'd be like, this sucks. But that is how important it is to learn to lose and not risk disaster. It's okay to lose. It's okay to lose small, but don't risk, losing 35% of your hedge fund or, 35% of your account on any trade. No trade is worth that risk of disaster, and anything can happen. And the funny thing is that company, my best friend's dad's company, they went bankrupt, wiping out all the shareholders, including me. They reorganized. The new CEO, who basically looked at me face to face and said, "The technology is great. I will turn this company around." Meanwhile, he put it into bankruptcy. He personally bought out the company in bankruptcy, leaving all the other shareholders behind, kept all the same contracts somehow, and later got bought out for over 20 million. So overall, I would have made several millions of dollars. But you can't look back and say, what if? I was wrong on the timing. I was wrong about investing in an illiquid penny stock, and I paid the price. And that to that day, I've had 3 major surgeries. I had Tommy John surgery on my arm, which, as I'll talk about my bio in a little bit, that got me into trading. I had my wisdom teeth out, and I woke up, on Percocet and screaming, "Mommy." And the biggest scar was that $500,000 loss. And there's still people, on the internet who think, again, that I lost everything, but I didn't lose everything. I lost roughly half of my money. That's still absolutely terrible and indefensible, but it left such an imprint on my mind that I never want that to happen again. I will never, ever, ever invest such a big portion of my wealth into anything, into any penny stock, any illiquid penny stock, any investment, no matter how excited I am, because it's just not worth the risk of disaster. My mindset was screwed up for like a year or two. I wasn't taking trades that I should be. I was just depressed. I was lethargic. I did a reality show. Don't let any one trade turn into disaster. So learn from what mindset you have going into good trades and replicate that. The keys to our success are doing the same things over and over and over, always getting better and refining. The lessons from, let's say, $5,000 in profits lead to the next 50,000 and the next 500,000. But do not be in a rush to get to 1 million. You have to go step by step. This is why I have this whole intro first before I even get into the basic terminology and my background and stuff like that, because you have to think about this as a journey. You need to make this vocation into your vacation. I was about to read it wrong. I'm still thinking about that $500,000 loss. That's how screwed up that thing made me. But if you learn to make this vocation into your vacation, you enjoy the entire ride. Even in the beginning, when you're probably going to be losing a little bit and not understanding everything that's going on. But if you stay in the game and you stay focused, like Tim Grittani did, even if you lose at first, it makes you better. It makes you stronger. Best part of all of this is that you can make millions of dollars from anywhere in the world. I have done this all while traveling to nearly 100 countries. I love to travel, and I definitely feel cooped up in offices, so I've made millions from all over the United States, countries like France, Italy, Japan, Greece, South Africa, Thailand, Spain, Canada, Brazil, even Kenya I was trading, even though the internet was so slow. I should add Cambodia. That was like the slowest internet. Vietnam too. I'm like a travel freak, but you can do this anywhere. All you need is an internet and a Wi-Fi, and you need an understanding of the rules and patterns in a brokerage account, ideally with $500 or more. Let me show you this little graphic. Put this together. A computer plus internet connection plus my strategy equals lifestyle upgrade. Whether you want to jump into trading an hour a week or full time, you're in for a lifestyle upgrade. Maybe you want to provide for your family, pay for college, buy that new car, or travel the world. I know this is cheesy and cliched, but this is my life. This is Bali right here. This is fantastic. This was one of the helicopter rides I used to dip out of New York City traffic. Here I was testing out the Audi R8, which I hated. Here's me trading in Venice. Here's me on a private jet. Everything in my life I owe to this strategy that I'm about to teach you. And I want you to have this kind of life. You know, I don't want to just brag about my life. I want you to be able to live this life. I'm just an example of the kind of success that you can have if you're dedicated and you study your ass off. So right now we're going to get into my story and past a little bit, just so that you understand that unlike a lot of the trading coaches and gurus online, I show everything. I am the most transparent trader you will ever meet, and I think that is something that we should all be into, because this industry is really kind of looked down upon by society because, you know, they think it's gambling, they think it's speculating, they think it serves no purpose. Well, you know, I always respond to my haters, or the haters of trading, not even my haters, and I say, look, you know, traders trade these stocks. We make these stocks more liquid, more active, and that allows them to raise more money. When companies are allowed to raise more money, then they can hire more people, create better products. We are the, you know, engine oil that we really don't get credit for in this economy. But it's mainly because there's a lot of people out there who are just shady. There's no other word for it. And I really want you not to learn from anybody who does not show every single trade, who cannot back up their trading profits. It really pisses me off when I see people who claim to be experts. You know, this bull market has created a lot of experts, and they just don't understand all the risks. Just like me when I was batting 1,000 over a decade ago and I hadn't been scarred. If you learn from these people, you will have kind of a half education, and you'll only realize that when it's too late. I see a lot of people who are scalping and they're just making, you know, 2 cents here, 5 cents here, and they're like, look at me, Tim, I'm making 50, 500, $1,000 every day. But they're partaking in the wrong kinds of setups. They're risking a ton. You know, they're making like less than 1% on their trades. They're scalping, and they think that it's okay because they're making money. And they don't understand the risks. They don't understand that their profits will dwindle and they could probably blow up in a different market. So I've been around the block. I've seen bull markets. I've seen bear markets. As I said earlier, 2014 is my best year. I spent $12,000 on this audit. Just, you know, I wasn't sure that I was going to be this profitable all year. So we did an audit on the first quarter. You know, I'll get, by the time this DVD is really popular, ideally in 2015, I'll have an audit for all of 2014, and I guess I'll include like a slide later when it's done. But as of right now, we have the audit for the first quarter, which I paid $12,000 for. I just wanted to show you the receipt where you can see how much money I made. And here is 3 months ended March 31st, 2014. This was my best quarter ever. And you know, the depreciation and the fair value of investments, I had some stocks at the end of the quarter, but the gain on my trading was $452,000. And you can see my bank fees, $199. But I made $448,000 in one quarter. This is the kind of thing that is possible. And I missed so many opportunities, as I'll go over, but I captured a lot. And I made nearly $500,000 in 3 months. The last time I made this much was year 2000, where I made $700,000 freshman year in college in the first 4 months. And that was a total bubble market. You know, 2014 just turns out to be, you know, what are the markets up right now? I'm filming this on December 18th, 2014. I think the markets are up roughly 10% or 12% on the year. I start every year with just $500,000. So I nearly doubled my money in 3 months. So this is what I'm hoping you understand, where if I make 10% on my money over the course of the year, that's a good year for the vast majority of the finance world. So if I start every year with 500,000, if I make 50,000 over the course of the year, I'm doing better than the vast majority of people out there. Instead, I made nearly 100% in 3 months. And, I'm up nearly 200% on the year. That would be the equivalent of people like 10 years of work. And that would be a good return. Just want to show you the difference between my strategy and normal finance, which is why I'm, a little more confident than I probably should be with just a few million in the bank. You have all these people in suits and ties and their big Greenwich, Connecticut mansions and their super yachts, and they're making 10, 20, 30 million off the management fees of their hedge funds and mutual funds, and they're a lot richer than me. And they're laughing at me with my little $4 million in trading profits, but my strategy is better for individual people. I'm not necessarily better for mutual funds or hedge funds. They could take a crap on what I've made. But for the average person with a few $1,000s or tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands, my strategy is ideal. And I want to show you this quote from my buddy James Altucher. He's a fund manager, entrepreneur, and best-selling author, and he says, "I know thousands of day traders, thousands. I know one successful day trader, and that's Tim." And I'm very proud of this because he has been around. He was the founder of StockPicker.com, which got acquired by TheStreet.com. He's friends with Jim Cramer. He's all over the place on the internet. And I never knew that I was going to be like this, I don't know, successful trader slash teacher. I just always kind of made money. And now I realize that, I do have this kind of special sauce, this strategy. I'm sure there's, lots of other day traders out there who are profitable. They're just not transparent. They just don't show everything like I do. So here is my profit graph over 15 years. And it's not exact because, I show all the trades from the beginning when I went from 12,000 to 1.65 million. But then I managed a hedge fund right in here, 2003 to 2007. And you can see it's I showed the total gains overall, but you don't see the crazy swings. I was up and down, $100,000, $200,000 at a time, and then there should be like a $500,000 loss. But overall, in the end, this is basically what happened. Not much. I didn't make much in between 2003 and 2007, and that's why you can see this is pretty flat. I can't upload my hedge fund trades because the broker that I used, which was Carlin Equities, got acquired by Goldman Sachs, and we do not have any of those records anymore. And that sucks, but overall my hedge fund finished up 2% per year over 4 years, even after the loss. So it's pretty much a scratch. And then you can see here, a lot of people say, "Oh, Tim, why didn't you make more, in 2008, 2009, 2010? I went back to $12,000, and I was trading a very, very small account in here. So even though I had very big percentage gains, and I grew the 12,000 into roughly $250,000 in 3 years, the dollar gains themselves aren't that huge. Then I got sick and tired of trading with such a small account, and I'm like, listen, okay, I've proven I can go back to 12,000 and grow my account exponentially. And you can go look on TimothySykes.com. You can read all the blog posts, how I did it. I was under the pattern day trader rule for 9 months, which I'll talk about in a sec. But now I trade with $500,000 every year. And actually at the beginning of 2015, I'm going to go to 100,000 because I think that's more manageable to help you understand how I trade, and try and teach. For me, it's about finding the right balance for teaching versus trading profits. I do love trading, but I love teaching more. And if you ask me, which do I want to do more, I would say teach. But at the same time, through my trading, I can teach lessons, good trades, bad trades. With my trading challenge, I give live trading webinars so you can see them. So even though I've only made 4.2 million, I want you to understand it's a very unconventional path that I've had. And I think more importantly are my stats right here, where I've made over 3,200 trades. My winning percentage is close to 74% of the time. My average dollar gain, as I said, is $2,376. And this is the kind of stats that I think, all of you guys should try and do. This is obviously $4.2 million is very nice, but if you can have a 73% winning percentage in your average gain over your journey, I don't want you guys who just have $1,000 or $2,000 or $5,000 to your name to really think that you have to make $2,000 per trade right away. This is over my entire journey. Even now, when I'm a multimillionaire, I'm only making on average $1,000 or $2,000 per trade. So get it out of your mind that you're going to make $2,000 in one trade when you're first beginning. Okay? This is pretend like you're a doctor. I'm a doctor for 15 years and I'm doing, the most complicated brain surgery in the world. This is the end game where I, on average, make $2,000 per trade. You guys are, if you follow this analogy, just starting medical school. You're not ready to do brain surgery. You're just, preparing in a few, well, it's different for everybody. In a few weeks or a few months or a few years, you'll be ready to trade. And at first, I want you to remember to trade small because I can't repeat it enough. Even my top student, Tim Grittani, who is like some kind of wonderkind to turn a few thousand into over 2 million, better than I did in my first 4 years. But for his first few months, he lost rather consistently. So these are my percent returns over the past few years. Again, 2009, 2010, I'm trading with a very small account. 2011, I make 54% on my money. 2012 was a bad year for me where I only make 38% on my money. 2013, I'm up 66%. And 2014 has been my, blowout year where I'm up 174% on the year. Understand this, okay? As I said before, making 15 to 30%, I basically crap on that. That does not make you wealthy. For me, I am already wealthy, and so I have different goals. I show this percentage because I'm doing a lot. Making video lessons, doing webinars. I am not optimized to trade great. I use the most basic setups on all the brokers because I want to show you what's realistic for the average person. Yes, I've been trading 15 years. Yes, I'm a self-made multimillionaire, so I have more experience than the average person, but my numbers are realistic. Obviously, past performance is not indicative of future returns, as my lawyer makes me say, but given the fact that I'm basically kind of like holding, one arm behind my back, like I think that this is possible for every single person to do this kind of percentages because you guys aren't giving all of these video lessons and webinars and writing blog posts and commentary and doing interviews. And I just had a photo shoot for Business Week, and you'll see me in Business Week. I have no idea if it's going to be a very positive article or a negative article. But I was just doing a photo shoot in the middle of the day the other day, and it took 3 hours, and I missed so many trades. So I bring that up just to show you that I am really well set up to be a teacher, but I am not partaking in every single trade I should be. And these percentage numbers, I really think that a lot of people can get this. If you follow the rules, if you're, just, I don't know how to say it, dedicated. I think this should be like a drinking game. How many times I've said follow the rules and I haven't even told you what the rules are. But if you're dedicated to really perfecting this craft, I've made several analogies that this is like medical school, or you're like a wannabe football player or NBA star. The stock trading, everybody wants instant gratification. You want to say, okay, I invested in this DVD. Now I want to learn to make money. How much money can I make? How much money I make off this DVD, then that shows if it's a good investment. And I really think that a lot of people underestimate the value of knowledge and self-sufficiency and the time it takes to get that. I'll bring up one of my students, Mark Crook, who I'll talk about in a little bit, but he has watched all of my video lessons 4 times, and he's up roughly $350,000 with my strategy. But he is so dedicated to really making it, he'll be a millionaire. He's made $350,000 in just a few years, and he moved down to Miami. He got out of a cubicle job that he hated, He has a beautiful fiance, and it's not just about the money to him. It's about learning the process, being self-sufficient. And lately, he has been predicting my trades ahead of me. And that's what I want all of you guys to do. Not just replicating my percent gains and making $4 million for yourself, but learning to think ahead of me and being like, wait a minute, I've seen this setup before. Let me beat Tim to the punch. And then it's nice when you beat me to the punch and I make the same exact trade a few seconds or a few minutes later. That's what's most important, self-sufficiency. So before I go any further, I want you to understand how I did all of this, because I'm trying to get you in the millionaire mindset, but more importantly, I started out with nothing, just like so many other people who are starting out with nothing now. So I am the dream. And I don't say this to be cocky. I say this to help you understand how far I've come and how far you can come if you learn from my experiences. So I was raised in Orange, Connecticut. It's a small town, population like 12,000. I played tennis pretty much age 6 through 16. Every day I was playing tennis to try and get into a good college. That was the whole goal for tennis. I liked it, but more importantly, if I got good at tennis, then that could get me into a good college. Getting into a good college could theoretically get me a good job. Getting a good job could get me financial freedom. My parents, my whole family had been in the jewelry business, which sounds glamorous, but the margins actually really kind of stink in the jewelry business, and I did not want to take that over. So I told my parents, from a very early age that I was not going to go into that, and they respected that. Much to their credit, they said, look, do whatever makes you happy, whatever you want. And playing tennis, they said, well, do what makes you happy, but also understand that, you need a good education. You need every advantage possible that you can to get a good job. It's a very competitive world out there. So I was raised in this middle class family. We didn't have much money to do really anything. I mean, I think our first trip that really sparked my love of traveling, we were set to go to California on a family vacation, and the flight was overbooked, and they were trying to basically bribe people to get off the plane. And I think they offered each person $800, and we just took a later flight and took the $800 for my little family, my stepdad, my mom, and I. And we used that later to help fund our first trip to London, England. That was my first trip in high school. And so money was very tight, but I did have roughly $12,000 in bar mitzvah gift savings. $12,000 is a lot of money to get for a bar mitzvah. My grandfather was basically half of it. He offered me either a tennis court or money. And I thought about it long and hard. Have a tennis court in my backyard would have been freaking awesome. But I said, you know what? I don't know if I'm going to really play tennis, all my life. And I took the money. And so that was just sitting in some savings accounts. And because I was such a hard worker at tennis, I got to the state finals junior year of high school. And I lost in a heartbreaking 3-set tiebreaker, and I broke all my rackets. I still have a temper, but I had a temper back then, and I was so determined to win my senior year of high school that I trained like a crazy person. I was not voted captain of my team, even though I was number one, so I was pretty bitter because, frankly, I'm kind of crazy intense. And the kids were right to be scared. If I was captain, we would have done 2 hours of fitness drills every day, and they didn't want that to happen. So I'm not like this natural born leader. I'm more like this natural born crazy hard worker. And so I was not captain, which really did piss me off. And I was number 2 in the state of Connecticut, which pissed me off even more. So I overtrained. And sure enough, going into senior year of high school, when I was basically the favorite to win the tournament, I injured my arm. And as it turned out, I had no cartilage left in my left elbow. I'm a lefty. And they had to do Tommy John surgery, which they take something out of your right arm and put it in your left arm. So I'm walking around high school with these 2 casts. I look like RoboCop, and I couldn't do anything. The good news is that the word of my tennis ranking had spread, and it helped me get into Tufts University. early decision right outside of Boston. It wasn't an Ivy League school like my parents wanted, but it was second tier, right under Ivy League, and tennis definitely helped. And I ended up not even playing anything because the injury just screwed me up. And then something else took over my life. In late 1998, when I'm already into college early, and senior year of high school, if you're already into college early, there's no real pressure. So my parents gave me control of the $12,000 that was just sitting in a bank account. As I learned later, they thought that I would lose it all. They thought that it would be a good lesson for me. But instead, I really just got addicted to the stock market, and I'm going to show you a picture in a second of how I did that. But at first, I took the $12,000 and I put like $3,000 into like Viacom, $3,000 into like Boston Celtics. I think $3,000 into Business Objects was a company back then. And then I left some cash, but I invested in these, quote, solid companies because that's how I thought you make a lot of money in the stock market. I really started digesting book after book. I wanted to learn about everything. I read this book called Fidelity's World, which was about mutual funds, and I wanted to be a mutual fund manager. So, I basically traded my $12,000 like it was a mutual fund, and I'm going to try and grow it. I'm going to try and make 15 to 30% per year, and I'm going to learn how to, play this game, and then I can be a big-time mutual fund manager one day. And after a few weeks in late 1998, I mean, the stocks just weren't moving. Like my 12,000 was like 12,000 like 500, 12,300, 12,400. Like week by week, it would barely move $100 or so. And I'm like, this is terrible. Like I'm sitting here at the computer wanting to learn, wanting to grow my account, and it's not moving. So I start looking at what stocks are moving, and the stocks that are moving the fastest are these things called penny stocks, these little stocks trading under $5 a share. No one's ever heard of these companies, and I start trading them over and over and over again, and I start seeing different patterns. When they start really breaking out, it's really weird how they break out for like 3 straight days and then they do nothing. But every single penny stock I'm looking at, and this is back in 1999, late 1998, and then all of 1999, and I'm researching these penny stocks nonstop. I'm reading their press releases. I'm seeing what news kind of moves the stocks. As I said, the 3 days, it's so weird. I don't know if I'm imagining this pattern in my head or if I see this over and over and over again where these penny stocks move for 3 days and then they drop. And I'm like, wait a minute, like, what if I just buy these for 3 days? What if I buy it for 1 day and let the pattern kind of take over? And it was really freaking me out. I had my own little Yahoo Finance group. It was called like Tim Sykes Picks. And it was just so weird and surreal trading these penny stocks that the major news media did not mention. But overall, during my senior year of high school, I made $100,000, and it was very experimental. You can go back on Profitly and look at my early trades. There was no pattern day trader rule, so I could just make a lot of trades. The pattern day trader rule was later implemented after the crash, and that limits you from over trading, which I think is actually a good thing, as I'll talk about with the pattern day trader rule. But I made $100,000 trading these penny stocks, and that was a lot of money for me as a senior in high school. And I was trading right out of like the computer lab. It was kind of funny. I just found a picture of a computer lab. I didn't take a picture back in 1999. I don't think I even had a cell phone. I can't even remember that far back. Maybe I had like a big clunky cell phone. No, I don't think I did actually. I don't know, but this is basically what any computer lab looks like in any high school anywhere in America. And what I would do is, because I was injured, and I had the 2 casts, and people kind of like stayed away from me because I looked like crazy. And because I was already into college early decision, I basically skipped classes and went to the computer lab, and they had all of these computers lined up just like this in a row. And this picture has people here, but I would skip class. So everybody would be at class, and it would just be me with all these computers, and there's also the librarian there. And I befriended the librarian, and he was telling me to stop playing with these penny stocks, and to invest in a good solid company like Johnson & Johnson. I remember Johnson & Johnson was this librarian's favorite stock, and he's telling me about their new drugs and the potential for it. And for me, I just wanted to grow my account. I had already tried investing. It didn't work. So what I started to do with my 12,000 was, buy 1,000 shares of a stock at like a dollar. It only cost me like $1,000, and then I try and sell it at like $1.50 and make 500. And early on, I really got accustomed to this kind of sniper tactical trading where I take one or two positions and I try and make a few hundred here, I try and make a few hundred there, and I grow my account. The $100,000 did not happen all at once in high school. I would grow it from like 12,000 to like 14,000 after 2 or 3 good picks, and then I would have a bad pick and it would go to maybe 13,000, and then I'd go up to like 14,500. It was very gradual, but I got started at the right time. Don't ever forget that when you get started, you have to think about where you are in history. Right now, 2014. We've already had a solid bull market for 5-6 years. I mean, this is one of the longest bull markets in history. When I got started, it was a bull market, but it was a bubble. Looking back now, it's easy to say, oh, 1998, 1999, 2000, those were bubble years. At the time, you didn't know it was a bubble. We just saw stocks moving all the time. Even right now, 2014, 2015. Perhaps in 2020, we look back and we say, wow, this was a bubble. Maybe there's a stock crash coming right around the corner. I don't know. I don't try and guess what the market is going to do, ever. This is a very big thing, and I'll go into details about this with some of the myths surrounding investing in stock market prediction. But you never want to try and predict what the stock market is going to do. Back in 1999, I had no idea what the market was going to do. I had no idea about short selling. I was just trying to buy stocks that would spike so that my account would go up. And the reason why I show you this picture of this computer lab is because I was trying to look everywhere. There were no software like stockstotrade.com. There was no scanners out there that could help me, really sort through the stocks. I made my own watch list. I have thousands of index cards with just 4-letter tickers. And almost every single penny stock had a 4-letter ticker. So back then, I'm going from computer to computer because, again, remember, I'm in the middle of class and I'm basically skipping like almost half of my classes. And my high school people just didn't care because, they probably just thought that I was having some problems with my freakish RoboCop-like, casts. It was a scary sight to behold. And I would go from computer to computer and I would utilize, I'd be logged into like 6 computers at a time. And I would pull up a web page on one. And since it was back in 99, the internet was very slow. I mean, we were connected on like 56K modems, like America Online style. I would go from computer to computer to computer. And while one computer is loading a web page, I would use the next computer. So this was my very early kind of form of a multi-monitor computer where I could look at different news sources. And the way that I found stocks back then, because I didn't have any refined strategy and I had no guidance, this is a big thing. I was totally self-taught. I would go through prnewswire.com and businesswire.com and just look for interesting stories. So let's say on computer one, I'd have prnewswire.com, and then here on businesswire.com, and here I'd have freerealtime.com, which I think still exists, where it was free real-time quotes, and I would type in the tickers after I saw the news on computer, let's say this is computer 1, computer 2, computer 3. So once I see new news on computer 1 on whatever company, I would go to computer 3 and type in the ticker. And then on computer 2, I would see more news on a different company, and I would use computer number 4 to type in another ticker. So I'm watching a few different tickers to see how they react to news. I always notice that news is what moves stocks. And back then, 1999, the single best pattern to buy was when a company added .com to their name, to their corporate name, because that would show that they had an internet strategy. And I remember one of my best trades was sportsmansguide.com. SGDE was the ticker. And they added .com to their name, but before that, there were weeks leading up to the rumors that they were going to add .com to their name. And so I was buying the stock. And, Sportsman's Guide, it's a boring company. They sell like camping gear, fishing gear. But by adding .com to the name, the stock like tripled. And so I did this again and again and again. And that was really one of my first strategies, finding low price stocks that would add .com to their name. And they would spike 50 or 100 or 200% on the news over 1, 2, or 3 days. I learned very early on that penny stocks, if a big company added .com to the name, it would be priced in immediately and then it wouldn't move because every news service would, really cover it. With penny stocks, there was an inefficiency where if you were first to spot the news, then the stock would run up for several days and you had a chance to get in before everybody else realized it. That's how I made a lot of money. Okay, so hopefully now I have whet your appetite and what is possible. You want to make millions, you see that I have made millions, you see that I started off in the high school computer lab with a 56K modem and I still somehow made 6 figures when I knew hardly anything. I want you to do that exact same kind of thing, and in time you can be a millionaire, ideally within a few years. And I think it's be quicker than it took me to get to really, several million, because now you have guidance, something I never had. I'm totally self-taught. So let's get down to some basic vocabulary. This isn't very much fun, but it's necessary. You need to understand how the market works and the subtleties of my strategy to really, take it to the next level. And that means profiting and thinking on your own. And I'm not saying you have to think on your own right from the start. I will do all the thinking for you. I will do all the planning for you. I am your training wheels. But eventually, I want you to think on your own. So these are the options that you have when you are going into the stock market. Let's say you have a brokerage account, and we'll go over the brokers in a little bit, but you can put in a few different orders. So your brokerage account is nothing more than a bank account that you can basically play with. Instead of writing checks and using the ATM, you can basically take positions in various stocks. You can buy a stock if you think the stock is going to go higher. You can sell the stock if you already have a position, and there's 2 reasons to sell a stock. Either it's not doing well and you want to cut losses, or maybe it's achieved your goals and you're like, wow, I have a solid profit. I'm going to sell the stock that I already have, and you lock in the profit. Then there are 2 more other actions that are not talked about at all by the mainstream press, and that is selling short and buying to cover. And now this is very confusing, but I've made pretty much 3/4 of my money through selling short, not just buying stocks. I made my first million all through buying. I had no idea about short selling, thank God, in 1999 and 2000 when the stock market was going crazy. But I learned in 2001 and 2002 and beyond that you can actually profit when stocks go down. You don't have to be bullish all the time. Have you ever heard the phrase, don't sell yourself short? That means don't underestimate yourself. You should actually have more confidence and believe in yourself. Well, when there are some companies, especially the companies that I trade, which are really terrible, which we'll get into, you should sell them short. You should underestimate them. You should bet on failure, because most small companies do fail. And that doesn't make you unethical. It doesn't make you un-American. It doesn't make you evil. It makes you logical. And, focusing on trades based on statistics is good. If almost every single company that you're going to trade is going to go bankrupt, you probably should understand that. And you should probably have a little more cynical view than the average person who trades penny stocks, and they think that every one of these little companies is going to be the next Microsoft. Selling short and buying to cover is the exact same thing as buying and selling a stock, just in the reverse chronological order. Normally, let's say you buy a stock, 1,000 shares at let's say $3 a share, and then it goes up to $10 a share, and you sell your 1,000 shares, and you pocket making $7,000, and you're really pumped, right? You've basically done what I've done this week, although my $7,000 this week was not based on just one trade. Selling short, let's say you already see the stock at $10 a share, and you're like, you know what, this company has bad products. Maybe somebody just wrote an expose on some website saying this company is going to go bankrupt. They're losing a lot of money. Maybe they have a new competitor that's going to take their market share. Whatever the reason, you think this stock is going to fall. So what you do, you have no position, you click sell short on your broker. Some brokers, depending on your broker, the button just says sell, and if you have no position, then they understand that means sell short. Other brokers have a specific button that says sell short, and it's basically you borrowing shares from the broker to take a negative position. And this freaks people out, taking a negative position. How is that possible? Well, you're borrowing it, okay? You're borrowing it from your broker. You're basically taking out a loan and saying, I think this company is going down, so I'm going to sell short at $10 a share. With the goal, if it does go down, let's say the company reports bad earnings, some negative news comes out, they get sued, they lose a lot of money, whatever happens, and the stock goes from 10 to 3. And you were right to sell short. And then you buy it back. So you go from no position to negative 1,000 shares. And then when you buy your negative 1,000 shares back, you go back to no position. So you're doing the exact same thing. If you buy a stock at 3 and sell it at 10, you make $7 a share. If you sell it short at 10 and buy it back at 3, you still make $7 a share, just in the reverse order. And understanding this is so huge. It's like having a forehand and a backhand in tennis. A lot of people think, oh, the stock market's not going up this year, there's no opportunity. That's not true. I've made money almost every single year, aside from when I tried investing long term, and we'll talk about that when I talk about my 2006 and 2007 results. But almost every single year that I have been trading, I have made money in both bull markets and bear markets. And it's because I have learned my forehand and backhand. I can buy stocks when I think that they're going to go up, and I can sell stocks when I think that they're going to go down. I can sell them short and bet against them, and I bank. And because I'm kind of cynical, in case you couldn't tell, I actually prefer selling short. And if you look at my trades, I am more aggressive on the short side because it is statistically backed up that most of the companies that I trade, they never make it. They will end up at zero. So you kind of know how they end up. That's a huge advantage. Another option that you have is having no position. And this is a dramatically underused tactic where people think that they need to be invested at all times. They think that they need to have their money working. You have your brokerage account open, you're all excited to learn, and you just start playing with different stocks. And you buy 100 shares here and 200 shares there. And for me, I don't like that. I like to be a sniper. I like to have, just 1 or 2 stocks at a time. And most of the time I have no position because I don't think that there's a lot of predictability. I like to focus on the best stocks. If you have too many positions or you're just trying different things, it's no different than someone going into a casino and being like, what should I play? Should I play craps? Should I play the slots? Should I play blackjack? Should I play Keno? And none of those games have good odds of success, especially Keno. In case you didn't know, Keno has the worst odds of success in the casino. Never play Keno. So a lot of the time I have no position. And even though I'm somebody who teaches trading, I like to think of myself as a retired trader. And I only get pulled back into the market when there's a trade that is good enough. And that really keeps me focused and prevents me from over trading. A lot of people who trade stocks, they just lose a lot of money because it's based on commissions, and it's because they're just confusing themselves with, kind of crappy trades. Here are the different kinds of orders that you can put in. You can put in a limit order. This is basically where you specify what specific price you want for the stock. So if the stock is trading at, let's say, $8 a share, and you put in a limit order, I will not pay more than $8.05 per share. Versus a market order where you're just like, oh my God, I love this company, let me just buy it at any price. And you will get raped if you do a market order. I have never, ever, ever used market orders, and I would never, ever recommend using market orders because you're at the whims of just whoever is in the stock market. You're saying, you know what, just take whatever price you want for this stock. I don't care. I'm being too emotional. That's what a market order tells the market maker, and market makers control the stock prices. Never use a market order. Always use a limit order because then at least, even if you don't get filled on your execution, let's say you're trying to buy a stock at $8 a share and you use a limit of 805 and it's a fast moving stock, let's say they just had good news with Google, and it's already at 810. Okay, so you missed it. A market order you would have gotten executed, but you can't quantify your risk when you use a market order. You might have gotten filled at $9 a share if you use a market order, and that would be an okay price legally speaking. It would be a terrible price for you because now you've overpaid by $1 a share. But that sucks, and you don't want market orders. Good till canceled order. So GTC stands for good till canceled. I guess I should actually type in the two options, day or GTC order. So you can put in a day order where your order, whether you're trying to buy or sell short or any of those other orders that we just talked about, only lasts for the day that you put it in. Or you can have a good till cancel order where until you cancel it, your order and your limit price is just going to be there, and it's going to be out in the open. And if the stock comes to your price, you will get executed even if it's 2 weeks from now. I do not like good till cancel orders because I tend to forget about them. I only like day orders where I want to get executed at a specific price at a certain time, and I want to know that I have a position or don't. Good till cancel order, I've made this mistake before where I'm trying to trade the stock, and I just leave the order in for days and weeks, and I totally forget about it, and then I get executed, and I'm like, whoa, I don't even want this stock anymore. Then you also have pre-market orders and after-hours orders. So the stock market is open from 9:30 a.m. till 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the U.S. stock market. But pre-market, you can start trading as early as 7 a.m. Eastern, and after-hours, you don't have to close up shop at 4 p.m. Eastern. You can go all the way up to 8 p.m. Eastern. So I know some people who work from 8 a.m. till 8 p.m. Eastern, and they're partaking in pre-market and after-hours. Pre-market and after-hours is very illiquid. There is not a lot of trading going on because, frankly, most people don't want to work 8 till 8. I don't understand how, if you trade foreign exchange, you're working like nonstop. The market never closes. I don't get that. I do look at stocks pre-market and after hours, but I rarely ever trade them because the prices that you get can just be out of control. They're just all over the place. If a company reports good news, the stock might spike 50% after hours just because everyone's excited about the good news. And then when normal market hours resume the next day, the stock is only up 20% and you've just gotten way too emotional. Pre-market and after hours is kind of like using a market order because it's just, not a very tight range for the stock. So be very careful with that. I really like controlled. I don't mind missing a trade by using a limit order and by using a day order. At least then I know my risk. It's so much better to know your risk and not risk losing a ton than to get emotional about a stock, good or bad, and get a terrible price and lose just a lot of money. Here are some basic terms. You can be bullish. Have you heard that term? Merrill Lynch had it before they went bankrupt. Be bullish. That just means that you're like a Wall Street bull. You want to be charging ahead and you want the stock market or the stock to go higher. If you're bearish, then you're grumpy, you're growling, you're mainly a short seller, and you do not think that the stock or the stock market is going to do well. So you're bearish. It's always a battle, bulls versus bears, and the vast majority of the world is bullish. There's no broker whose slogan ever is be bearish. Short sellers are a very small community in the stock market overall, frankly, because this has been the most successful century in the history of finance. If you read a great book called The Triumph of the Optimists, our stock market has gone up like 1,000,000%, which is crazy. So that, some bears make the case that this can't last forever, but with all the market indices breaking out to new highs, I have no idea how far this bull market goes. Going long or going short, this is basically like buying or shorting. Going long is just another term for buying, and being short is just another term for short selling. Also, you can have no bias, which again I think is a very underutilized way to look at the stock market, where people always ask me, what do you think the stock market is doing? 3 out of 4 stocks follow the market, right? Well, I don't know what the stock market is going to do. I'm more specific, focused on, okay, here's an absolute scam. I'm going to bet against it. I don't care if we're in the biggest bull market in history. This is a scam, a pump and dump, and it's probably going to crash pretty soon once all of the promotional mailers have stopped going out. Or if it's a really good company, I don't care if it's a bear market. If a small company just announces a contract with Apple, then I think it should be really good. So I try not to have an overall market bias. I look at specific stocks and the news and the catalysts surrounding them. All right, so there's different kinds of stocks. I trade almost entirely penny stocks. Stocks traded, depending on the definition with what you want to go with, under $1 a share or more likely under $5 a share. Very low price stocks, and the reason why they're low price is because they're very small companies, they're speculative. Many of them are, yes, scams, like the movie Wolf of Wall Street, but they're basically long shots. If you go to a racetrack and you bet on a horse to win, that's going to be, 49-1, as opposed to the favorite where it might be like 3-2 odds of winning. Penny stocks are long shots, and the reason why people hate them is because, frankly, they don't know that you can short sell them, you can bet against them. If more people realize, guess what, you have all these scams trading and you can actually bet against them, the odds of you being correct are like 90%. Everybody would love penny stocks, but they don't realize it. The vast majority of the world is marketed penny stocks through promotional mailers that they get in their email. Sometimes they get hard copy mailers in the post office, in their mailbox, and they actually get some pump and dumps actually send out DVDs. What were they called? Stockumentaries. And they're all just promoted to try and lure you into a story. Say, oh, this company just found gold in Colombia. This company is just going to revolutionize the oil industry. We have some new amazing mobile internet technology. And they pitch stories. And they really take advantage of the financially naive and ignorant. And those people don't realize that they're buying shares in a company that's basically a shell or a carcass. I like to make the comparison that a lot of these penny stocks are like dead men walking. It's like the movie Weekend at Bernie's. And the penny stock promoters, like the people who you see in the movie Wolf of Wall Street or another movie Boiler Room, they're promoting this stock of this company that doesn't even exist. It's just legal paperwork. They have no sales, no cash, no revenues. It just exists on paper. And idiots who don't have a lot of money are desperate to, try and find the next Microsoft. They think that's how they're going to get rich. And instead, they invest in these companies, and 99.9% of them go to zero. And 99.9% of penny stock traders and investors, they become bag holders. They hold the bag. They're like, well, it's only at $1. I might as well hold. Maybe something will happen. It's only at 5 cents a share. Might as well hold. Something might happen. And they don't realize that, yes, something might happen. And when the stocks do spike, if there's like a new promotion, and they're like, ha, I told you we should have held. They learned the wrong lessons. Penny stocks, the odds are every single penny stock will crash. The odds are every single penny stock will go to zero. And this gives it a tremendous advantage because you know the end game, statistically speaking. Every now and then, a pump and dump does make it in past $5 a share up to $10 a share, but that might happen once or twice or maybe 3 times per year. Even in this bull market, very rarely will you see these pumps actually stay afloat. Frankly, because all of the insiders and people who are paying for the promotion have shares invested at like a penny a share or a half a penny a share. So they don't care if it's at $1 or $2 or $3. They're selling into all of this and laughing at all the idiots who believe this hype and promotion. This is my world. As you can tell, it's very personal to me. And the way that I've made my money is by understanding which companies are scams and betting against them and being there for the day when they collapse 30, 40, 50%, as you'll see in some upcoming live trading videos that we've included here, and not just fall and prey like so many people do. Most people, they see these stocks and they drop so much in one day and they're just confused and they blame penny stocks instead of blaming themselves. And if they took the time to watch these videos and look at the subtleties and look at the patterns and the indicators of this niche, they would realize you can actually short sell these stocks and be there ahead of time when they crash. In the past week, I had over a dozen trading challenge students trading live with me here in Miami, and I was shorting the ticker ECRY, which is a blatant pump, and I was shorting it at 45 cents and 55 cents a share in a day, and it crashed all the way to 20 cents a share that day. And I covered too soon. I covered at like 38 and 39. I made a few cents a share, but I made $7,600, and I could have made 40,000. I'm not the best timer, but it was predictable, and I'm very proud of one of my students, Tracy. I'm going to call you out. She was one of my students, and she was in the room. She shorted it also, and she made, I think, $500, and that was like her first solid trade. So it's awesome when you realize the potential for penny stocks. I think they're much better than large cap stocks. Large cap, mid cap, small cap, micro cap, and nano cap. These are all just different variations of the word cap. And cap stands for market capitalization. What is the company valued at? Large cap stocks are multi-billion-dollar companies. Large multinational companies. Mid cap stocks are, roughly $1 billion to $5 billion. They're still pretty big, $1 billion company, but on Wall Street that's considered mid cap. Small cap is, there's different definitions out there, but for me it's roughly 500 million to $1 billion is a small cap stock. And then micro cap stocks and nano cap stocks, which is pretty much what I play entirely. Micro cap stocks, you can say that they're valued between $100 million and $500 million, and nano cap stocks are under $100 million. I like trading these small stocks, these small penny stocks, because they are so inefficiently priced. And if a company like, a stock trading at 10 cents a share has really good news, even if the news is picked up by a few traders and the stock, let's say, goes from 10 cents to 20 cents, it still takes usually a day or two, and I'll show you some examples of how good news can really just spread and take time, like 2 or 3 or even 4 days. I'll give you an example off the top of my head. Liquid Metal, when they announced their deal with Apple, and I was buying it at 55 cents. It was already up from 25 cents on the day because of the SEC filing. No one had really picked it up yet because no one really follows penny stocks closely. A few hours later, I sold it at 85 cents, and I made 50% on my money in like 2 hours. And then 2 days later, it was at $1.70 a share when the mainstream news picked up on it. And it hasn't seen a big run up since. This was in, I want to say, August 2010, but it just shows you the kind of opportunity. If a big company like Google announces any kind of news that's important, 1 million traders, every single financial news media outlet is all over it. So there's not as much opportunity, there's a lot more competition. So how do you determine what is the capitalization of a company? You multiply the shares outstanding times the stock price. Shares outstanding are how many shares are out there in the world. So let's say there's a stock, a penny stock, trading at $5 a share, and there's 10 million shares outstanding, and you can look on their SEC filings, as I'll show you later. 10 million shares outstanding times a $5 stock price, it's a $50 million company. 10 million times 5, that means it's a nano cap company. And almost every single trader you're ever going to meet or investor will laugh at you if you try and tell them that there's this guy out there who focuses on nano cap and micro cap companies, because most people think that they're just so unpredictable, but they're not. I can't wait to show you all these indicators. We got to get through these basics first, though. So what is the public float? You'll see this if you read a company's SEC filings. You'll see these 3 different things listed. Shares outstanding are the total number of shares. Public float is how many shares can actually trade. So to determine the public float, you have to subtract what the insiders own. So if the CEO and the COO and the CFO, going back to this example with 10 million shares, if those 3 insiders own, let's say, 3 million shares, you subtract 10 million minus 3 million, and the public float is 7 million shares. That's how many shares can trade in a day. And if the news is really good, then, let's say if 7 million shares trade in a day, then the entire public float has kind of been traded, and that's really good news because some people are going to hold on to their shares, and that means that the stock price will probably have to rise if more people are going to want to buy based on supply and demand. Authorized shares, and I'll give you a whole supply-demand lesson too. Get excited, yeah. Authorized shares just is how many shares the company can issue. Shares outstanding is how many shares exist. So let's say, again, there are 10 million shares that exist. There's 7 million in the public float, but they have an authorized number of shares of 50 million. Authorized shares is always going to be bigger than the public float and the shares outstanding because this is how many shares the company can issue. And companies usually have several million, if not tens or even hundreds of millions of shares that they could issue at any time. If they want to, let's say, buy out another company, they're going to issue shares. If they're going to hire, if they're a penny stock and they're going to hire a penny stock promoter, they might issue some shares and they'll say it's for a consultant. They might say, oh, we hired all these new employees, so we need to, issue more shares from our authorized shares, and that's how we're going to pay them. Penny stocks don't have a lot of cash, so they usually pay their employees with shares, and they try and feed them the dream that they are going to be the next Microsoft. And the penny stock employees don't know any better either. I mean, I'll tell you about court cases that I've had where Justin Bieber, celebrities like Bieber and Shaquille O'Neal have sent me cease and desist letters when I've exposed their penny stock pumps. And I guarantee you that the celebrities themselves don't even know what was going on with the companies that they're the spokespeople for. They just think that this is a company with a good product. They don't understand the corruption, sadly enough. Maybe I'll mail Bieber this DVD. An IPO. So an IPO is an initial public offering. There are millions upon millions of companies out there that are not traded on a public stock exchange because they're private companies. One of the greatest restaurant chains in the world, Subway, for example, is not a public stock. Most of the successful companies in the world are not public because they don't want to go through this whole reporting of earnings every quarter and dealing with all these shareholders and their competitors knowing pretty much everything about the company. That's what happens when you go public. When you become a public stock, you have to release all your financials. Subway loves hiding their financials. We can only speculate how much money they make. So an IPO is for when the companies go public for the first time, and you get basically a peek inside how their company operates and how good or bad they do. Facebook, for example, is one of the latest big IPOs, and Twitter also. And Facebook went public not because they wanted to, but because they reached a certain number of shareholders and they legally had to do it. Companies, once their stocks, and also during an IPO, these companies raise money. So Facebook, Twitter, and whatever other companies out there, they go on these road shows to all these bankers and institutional investors, hedge funds all over the world, and they pitch their story. And the bankers have the choice of buying shares, and a hot IPO like Facebook, everybody wants in because they know once the stock goes public, all of the retail investors, just mom and pop people, are going to be like, oh, I want to invest in Facebook, and the stock is going to soar. So it's better to be in Facebook early than later on. But companies can also do secondary offerings. So IPOs are fantastic for press. The company raises billions of dollars when they first become a public stock and they sell more shares to more shareholders all over the world. But then once you're already a stock, if your stock price is doing well, you can do a secondary offering. I is for initial, right here. Initial public offering. Secondary would be, once you're already a public stock and you're selling more shares, you're diluting existing shareholders, but you're selling more shares because you want to raise money. And a secondary offering is usually a bad thing for a stock, just because they're diluting, the existing shareholders. They're offering more shares to new shareholders. They're selling them, and it's no different than if you pour extra water into like orange juice when you're sick. Your throat hurts, and the pulp from the orange juice and the acidity hurts your throat. So you pour water in and you dilute the orange juice. When you do a secondary offering, you're diluting the existing shareholders by adding new shareholders. Yes, it's good that the company can raise more money, and theoretically they can take on new projects and their revenues will grow and their profits will grow. But still, I don't, as an existing shareholder, I would never want a secondary offering. That means that the company needs more money to try and grow, or maybe needs more money just to survive. That's not the sign of a healthy company. So again, going back to penny stocks, part of the reason why a lot of these companies become penny stocks and become publicly traded is because they need access to capital. Penny stocks are usually almost always cash starving. And by becoming a public stock, you can put a valuation on the company, as opposed to when you're a private company. You could say the company's worth 10 million, but there's not like a public liquid market where the value of the company is traded every single day. Investors like liquid markets. Investors like to invest in a company where they say, okay, for the past 200 days, this company's been valued at $100 million. So you can peg a specific valuation, as opposed to private companies, which have a much tougher time raising money because you don't know the exact valuation because it's not publicly traded. So there's great benefits to seeing what a company is actually worth as determined by the public markets through their stock price. Before we start talking solely about penny stocks, I want to tell you about all the different kinds of investments that are out there. I'm not the only millionaire or multimillionaire and teacher in the world. The way that I teach and the way that I make my money, I think, is easiest and best for the average investor to learn. But there are a lot of other strategies out there, and it's good for you to just know about them, just in case, you might say, hey, Tim, thanks for the lessons, but I don't like penny stocks. And that's fine. As long as you get rich somehow, I'm not going to complain. I just want to show you all of the different avenues. And for a lot of people, they like blue chip stocks. These are the best companies in the world. Companies like GE, IBM, I'm blanking, American Express, Halliburton, all the biggest companies in their various industries. And a lot of people feel very comfortable investing in this because, fundamentally, these big companies have advantages over small companies because, for various reasons, they have, unlimited technology, financial advantages. And so these big companies usually outperform over time. The problem is that even if they outperform, what does outperforming mean? They might go up 20, maybe 30, sometimes 50% per year. If you catch, like the hottest blue chip stock, you might double your money on a stock over the course of a year. That is not going to make you rich when you have a small account. You have to grow your account exponentially. And I know that sounds like a tough task, but just wait. I'm going to get to the meat of all of this. Bonds are even less volatile. Bonds are where you're not necessarily investing in the company itself, you're investing in the company's stability or the government's stability. There are U.S. Treasury bonds where you can earn 2 or 3% on your money per year by basically investing in the U.S. and the U.S.'s ability to, function normally. You could have riskier bonds that exist. I mean, Russia right now is in big trouble. And so there are Russian bonds where theoretically, if Russia survives unscathed through this whole oil crisis and their probable over-aggressive international policies, you might make 10 or maybe even 20% per year on your money. Forex is even bigger and more popular than anything. This is where you can trade different currencies. The US dollar, if you think the US is going to do better than Europe, or if you think that for example, right now the Russian ruble is collapsing compared to every other currency. So you can bet on this. And with currencies, Forex, the reason why it's so popular is because some brokers out there offer 100-to-1 leverage. So even if you have like $1,000 to your name, you can bet $100,000 and you can say, oh, I think the British pound is going to do well. And because you're using leverage, because you're taking such a huge bet and you're borrowing from your broker, if you're right for even a 1% move and you bet $100,000, you make $1,000, 1% of 100,000. Guess what? That's $1,000. You've just doubled your measly $1,000 investment into $2,000. And that's really cool. The problem is that most traders lose money. And if you use leverage, which I never, ever, ever recommend doing because you can never be so sure about a stock or any investment, you can lose it all. Imagine if you invest in the Russian ruble and you think that it's going to go up. And now you see this collapse, and the Russian ruble, I think, has collapsed like 30% in the past few weeks. Well, if you invest your $1,000 and you use 100-to-1 leverage and you bet $100,000 and the Russian ruble collapses 30%, you're down $30,000 on your little $1,000 investment. And now you owe your broker $29,000. So most investors and traders blow up. They lose everything. I think there's a stat out there that 5 out of 6 Forex traders blow up. They lose all their money within 6 months because you just don't know where the currencies are going. You're not well informed enough. There are people out there that make billions of dollars per year, literally billions of dollars. The biggest hedge fund managers, the biggest traders, they have the best information. They have the best executions. You have no advantage. Blue chip stocks, talked about endlessly on CNBC. Everyone wants to know, what is GE's take for the next 2 years? What is your advantage? What is your edge? The reason why I am so successful is because I have an advantage on my trades, as you'll see when I start to show you them. There's also hedge funds and mutual funds. These are multi-trillion-dollar industries where you can basically invest in a mutual fund or a hedge fund, just one financial instrument, one investment for you, and they in turn go out and invest in dozens, if not hundreds, sometimes even thousands of investments. Mutual funds have been the king for decades because you want to diversify, right? That's the secret to safe investing, where if you invest in 500 or 1,000 different stocks, most likely you're not going to lose a lot of money, because what are the odds of all of those stocks going out of business or really doing badly at the same time? Hedge funds are newer in the past decade, and they've really exploded because mutual funds, by their charters, usually have to invest long. They have to be bullish. Even if, for some reason, a mutual fund manager, and this is what I like to say, this is not quoted anywhere else, as you'll soon hear when I say this crazy statement, but even if there was a mutual fund manager who hears that, guess what, there's going to be a thermonuclear disaster tomorrow, the mutual fund manager could not sell all of his holdings by his investment charter. Most mutual funds have to remain 65 or 75, sometimes even 100% invested at all times. And that's just inefficient. If you know something's going to happen, or if you see some signs, like if you think, okay, Russia is on the verge of collapse, maybe we should sell all of the Russian stocks, and you're like, oh shoot, I run a mutual fund, I can't sell it all. They're dinosaurs. Hedge funds are the new mutual funds, where they invest in dozens, hundreds, or thousands of different investments, but they can also short sell. They can also bet against stocks, and they can also, pretty much take any position. They're a much more legally flexible mutual fund, and that allows many of them to outperform. So if a hedge fund manager hears about, thermonuclear disaster in Russia, he can not only just sell his Russian stocks to protect his fund, but he can also sell short and bet against them and make money if the Russian market collapses. So hedge funds have become very popular. The problem with both hedge funds and mutual funds is that if you look at the statistics, they still don't beat the major indexes. And that's ridiculous. These are big multi-billion-dollar companies, and no matter how hard they try, no matter how many analysts they have, looking at the stats, over 70% plus of mutual funds don't even beat the simple S&P 500 index, which is just an index of the 500 largest companies in the US. So you could just invest in the S&P 500. You don't have to try and pick and choose all these fancy managers, and it's a whole sham. The whole mutual fund industry is a sham. And for those people who think that mutual funds are safe, well, mutual funds dropped 30, 40, 50% just a few years ago during the 2008 crisis, just like the entire stock market did. If you invest in 500 companies and the entire stock market is crashing, every single one of your 500 companies, or most of them, are going to do badly. You don't diversify and save yourself. Yeah, maybe you can be in different industries, and maybe a mutual fund can partially invest in gold so you can hedge your losses. But mutual fund investors were shocked just a few years ago to realize that they don't do that much better. And hedge funds, yes, you can do a lot better because you can short sell, you can buy, you can have no stocks or no positions, as sometimes you can use a lot of leverage. There are some crazy percent gains on hedge funds. Some hedge funds have been known to go up 100, 200, or even 500% in a year. But the problem is that the way that these people are compensated, both hedge fund managers and mutual fund managers, they're compensated as an annual percent of fees. So mutual funds take roughly on average like 1% fee per year. So if a mutual fund has $1 billion under assets, then the mutual fund company that runs it is making 1%, which is $10 million. Not a bad business. And their whole job is to try and grow their business so that, if they have $2 billion under management, then they make $20 million. If they have $10 billion under management, then they make $100 million. So their job, they're trying to raise as much money as possible. And to raise as much money as possible, you have to appear to be safe. You have to appear to be very professional. And you have to appear to be able to beat other investments year in, year out, even if you only beat other investments by 1 or 2% per year. So pretty much the entire mutual fund industry has been geared towards beating whatever index they compete with by 1 or 2% per year. And if they do that every year, their assets grow and they make more money on their annual fees. Hedge funds, again, are a little better in this sense that, they take an annual percentage fee, management fee, but then they also take a cut of their profits. So most hedge funds are set up with the fee structure 2 and 20. They take 2% management fee per year and 20% of the profits. So it doesn't matter if their assets are growing as much, they want to also make a profit for their investors, which is good for investors because now, they do well, they want to get paid on the profits. So they're going to only try and choose investments that create profits for them and their investors so they can take their 20%. Some hedge funds take 30%, some hedge funds take even 40 or 50% because they do so well year after year and they're like, we deserve this. We're the best hedge funds. There are a few hedge funds out there like that. The problem with hedge funds is that they're limited to accredited investors, investors who already have millions of dollars or who make over $250,000 per year. They're not for the average person. And this is kind of what sucks. This is why I have such a successful teaching business where my strategy is for the average person. There are no barriers to entry. I don't like rich people. I don't get along with them. I don't like the whole hedge fund industry. And also a big problem with the hedge fund industry is that you have a lot of these hedge funds that perform very well for a year or two and their managers get very rich. You have these multi-billion-dollar funds that sometimes make $1 billion or $2 billion or even $10 billion in a year, and then the fund manager, the guy, the guy behind the scenes, is so rich that he starts making some crazy bets, and he's not motivated anymore to have normal returns because he wants those crazy, big bonuses. He wants to make $1 billion or $2 billion a year. It doesn't really matter. The point is that hedge funds are not for the average person. You can't even get into them. Even if you do, even if you have the best hedge funds in the world, you're only going to make 50 to 100% per year. That's still not going to get you rich. So I'm not a fan of hedge funds. I ran a hedge fund. I only had a few $1 million under management, but I just hate the fact that it's for rich people only. It's really just not fair. Also, we have a whole bunch of other financial instruments which have become popular recently. ETFs are exchange-traded funds where you can basically track an index. So you don't have to invest in a mutual fund. You don't have to invest in a hedge fund. You can say, hey, I like oil stocks, but I don't know which oil stock to buy. So you invest in USO, which is an oil ETF, and it basically invests in all the oil companies. So you would participate if the oil sector rises. ADRs are American Depository Receipts. These are foreign companies that trade in the US, and these stocks don't really move that fast because they're foreign companies and they move more on their home turf. And the US is kind of just like it moves a little bit in reaction to what it's doing at home. ETFs are much more popular than ADRs because ETFs now they have 3 times leverage. ETFs, as I talked about how Russia has been kind of volatile lately. RUSS is a Russian ETF, and it moves 3 times whatever the Russian market moves. So if Russia is up 1%, then RUSS moves 3%. So it's very volatile. It's very fun for traders. But again, you're betting on entire markets where you have no edge. And you as an average person, I'm not trying to put you down. I'm trying to help you understand your place in the world. You do not know where Russia is going. You do not have the billions of dollars in research and funds and analysts who have been trained at Harvard and Yale to help you research. So you have no advantage. IPOs are very popular with the press. This is when a company first becomes a stock. Facebook IPO'd, Twitter IPO'd, recently Alibaba IPO'd. Alibaba, I wrote an article how this was my most popular article. You have no edge. I'm going to say you have no edge again and again, and I'll explain what edge is, but when the whole world is finding out about an IPO, everybody is all excited, but it's just average people have no real advantage over somebody else. And institutions get these IPOs first because they do billions of dollars in revenue for the commissions for these, the bankers that bring these IPOs public. So they get Facebook, Twitter, Alibaba cheap. The investing public, you guys, get it too late. Every now and then you can find an IPO that is kind of not really covered well by the press. I did buy this one company, Energis. The ticker symbol was WATT. On its first day, when the stock had already hit $10 a share and it was down to $8, so I dip bought it. And they had an exciting story with their technology. They had a prototype where they could do wireless charging for cell phones. And I think that's a $1 trillion business idea. In the past few months after the IPO, nothing has really happened. The stock is still at 8. It did go to 16. But in the first 2 days, it also went to 16 because of just people getting excited about a technology. But you have to be really careful about buying a speculative company on the IPO day, no matter how good the technology is. I kind of benefited from this multi-year bull market where it's very speculative. But in a bear market, that would not necessarily, be very good. So understand what kind of market you're in. And remember, 3 out of 4 stocks follow the market. So if there's a hot IPO, but the market is down, the US stock market is down like 2 or 3% in the day, the hot IPO can have all the hype in the world. It's not going to be as good as it would be if the US stock market was up 2 or 3% on that day. I don't think that there's much advantage to buying IPOs. Any good IPO is going to be pretty high priced, like Alibaba. If you bought Alibaba, I think you could have bought it at 95 or maybe 91 on its opening day and sold it at like 100. So you could have made like 2 or 3% on your money. That's just not going to get you rich anytime soon. You really have to think about you no matter what you're trading and what your goals are. That's why I gave that whole 2-hour speech about what are your goals. Too many people just want to play whatever the financial press is talking about and what other traders are talking about in various chat rooms, and they don't think about their own personal needs. You have to be more selfish. This is why I rarely ever play mergers or reverse mergers. A merger is when 2 companies merge, together, and some company buys the other company, and there's usually a split, either a 50-50 split or a 60-40 split. 2 companies become one. And the problem with trading on this news is that, one company, if they're both publicly traded, one stock usually spikes a little, and then one company usually drops a little, depending on what the split is. But no matter what the split is, whether it's 70-30, 50-50, and let's say, you come up and say, oh, this is really good for this undervalued company, this values it higher. There's a whole legion of Ivy League trained traders and also algorithms that play the whole merger arbitrage game. Let me actually change this to mergers and merger arbitrage. So these guys are much smarter than me. As I bring up the Ivy League thing, not because it matters where you go to school, but just that these guys are really into statistics and probabilities. And when a merger is announced, these statistic people go to work and they say there's a 73% chance that this merger goes through. And they analyze this, and this whole strategy is called merger arbitrage. There are entire funds set up that only deal with mergers and merger arbitrage. And they have everything calculated and what the breakup value of the company is and all of this. And I and you cannot compete with that. So stay away from merger news. I don't care if a stock is up 200 or 300% and it looks fantastic. You have to avoid that because you do not have the tools. You are not equipped to fight that battle. Have you ever heard the saying, don't bring a knife to a gunfight, right? You have a knife. you as somebody with a few $1,000s or a few $100s, or maybe even tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars to your name, you have a gun, or you have a knife, a small knife. Maybe your knife is a little bigger than somebody else's, but the people who trade mergers and merger arbitrage strategies, they have freaking nuclear weapons. They're trading with tens, hundreds of millions, or even billions of dollars. And, they can float a rumor that the merger won't go through. I've seen it happen before. And, the stocks just can do whatever they want. So do not trade them. Reverse mergers are specifically almost for penny stocks, where there is some company out there, a private company, that wants to be listed on the stock exchange, but for some reason they don't want to do a whole IPO. Maybe they're too small, maybe they're too speculative, maybe they're too sketchy. An IPO, as I talked about, involves an entire roadshow. You get your bankers to talk to everybody and say, hey, who wants to buy 1 million shares at 16? And they get all these bankers in a room, and the CEO presents why they should invest in their company. And this is what big companies do with IPOs and IPO roadshows. Reverse mergers are kind of a cheap alternative way for small companies to get publicly listed. So you have a private company that, for whatever reason, can't do a whole IPO roadshow. Maybe no banker is interested. Maybe they're just too small. But they merge with a publicly listed company. So a lot of penny stocks are just public shells. They only exist because their legal filings are in order. And there are a lot of penny stocks that their last traded price is like $2 a share and they haven't traded in months. And you look at it and you're like, why is this even a stock? Well, they have all their legal filings in order. They are a stock, and they're waiting for a private company to merge with. And the private company wants to merge with them only because they have a public listing. So there are people out there who specifically just create shells, and they don't want to grow their business. They just get all the legal stuff ready, and they wait for companies to come to them, and that way they sell them shares. And you can, no matter what company you have, you can pretty much do a reverse merger with a public shell and put out some legal filings. It'll cost you a few $100,000, but then you have a publicly traded stock. Reverse mergers are very, very sketchy. Again, the companies that do them aren't adequate. They're not ready for full-time IPOs. And usually what happens is that with penny stocks especially, there are missing shares. The company that had the initial public listing, somehow shares disappear. You'll often see in press releases, the CEO has retired these shares to complete the reverse merger. And really what that means is that the shares are in some foreign country that ideally can't be tracked, like Belize or Panama. And you really have to be careful, because if there's a penny stock and it starts getting pumped up and the reverse merger has happened, through those hidden shares, you see these sellers, and no one can understand why are there sellers. And it's the people with these hidden shares. So be very, very cautious with reverse mergers. I actually like shorting penny stocks that have been pumped up, and they previously did a reverse merger, and you start seeing these hidden shares pop up. It's hilarious and sad at the same time. But let me talk for a second about the different exchanges that you have. When you're trading a stock, you really have to know the characteristics of that stock. It doesn't just come down to the company. It comes down to what stock exchange they're on. New York Stock Exchange and American Stock Exchange are two old institutions. These are the old school trading floors where people are running around with their jackets, and there's people saying buy, 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 and other people are like sell, 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 and they're actually trying to do trades with one another on this floor, and it's kind of hectic. These floor traders are kind of becoming obsolete now, because now we have electronically, you can just put in a buy order, electronically you can put in a sell order. You don't need to send an order down to the floor. But the New York Stock Exchange and American Stock Exchange merged, because I think they both realize they're dinosaurs. And you have a lot of just boring companies that trade on this exchange. Boring and big. Almost every blue chip company that's not technology related trades on the New York Stock Exchange. You have a lot of credibility. It's a great honor. You show that your company has made it, blah, blah, blah. For you as a trader, I rarely trade New York Stock Exchange or American Stock Exchange stocks because they're such established companies. Their stocks are pretty boring. Every now and then I will. I bought ESI a few weeks ago in the fives, and in 2 days it went to 14. But we'll get into that. That's a specific instance. Most of the time, I don't want to trade established companies, just like blue chip companies. NASDAQ and NASDAQ small cap are two of my favorite exchanges. This is a technology heavy exchange. Intel, Google, Priceline. These are, and those are NASDAQ stocks. You also have small technology stocks that want to be the next Google, want to be the next Microsoft on the NASDAQ small cap. But because they're technology related, and technology is not like a boring cement business or insurance business, technology can grow very fast. If you create the right software, you create software one time and then you license it again and again and again. And every time you license it, it's just printing profits. Example, Microsoft. And so when you have good news on a NASDAQ stock or a NASDAQ small cap stock, the stock can fly, especially the low price stocks. I see a lot of NASDAQ small cap stocks go from like 3 to like 5 or 3 to 10 in 1 or 2 days. And I love that volatility. OTC Bulletin Board is kind of like a smaller NASDAQ. It stands for the over-the-counter bulletin boards. These are more speculative companies. They're very sketchy in nature. They don't have the listing requirements for the NASDAQ. Every OTCBB hopes to uplist to the NASDAQ. You have to think about the New York Stock Exchange as kind of like the major leagues. NASDAQ is like AAA, and OTC Bulletin Boards is like single A baseball, if you're into that. Or, OTCBB is like Pee Wee football, and then NASDAQ is junior varsity, and then like New York Stock Exchange and Amex are like the college football and the pros. You have to work your way up. And for a company to work its way up, it needs to have a certain amount of cash, a certain amount of directors and revenues. And OTC Bulletin Boards companies are very sketchy. They're almost all traded under $1 or $2 a share. Every now and then, you'll get an OTC Bulletin Board that trades at like $5 a share, but most of them are true penny stocks. And OTCBB has tried to get more credible lately, just like the pink sheets and the gray sheets. Pink sheets and gray sheets are featured in the Wolf of Wall Street. These are the sketchiest companies. They don't even necessarily have SEC filings. They don't even necessarily show their profits and revenues. So sometimes you'll see a skull and crossbones as like a warning sign on pinksheets.com when listing a company. You're like, you cannot rely on this company's numbers. These companies often lie blatantly in their press releases, but no one really cares about them because they're such small companies. You want to say, hey, why can you get away from with lying? And it's frankly just because the people that buy OTC bulletin boards and pink sheet stocks and gray sheet stocks, which is even lower than the pink sheet stocks, they just don't know. They know that they're buying some speculative junk. They don't know the difference between what is a bold lie and maybe just an exaggeration. You have these tiny companies that are trying to get their stock price up by any means possible. They just want attention. They want to find buyers. So they often issue hype-filled press releases. The foreign markets, you have stocks that are traded in, from what I've heard from my students, what really works with my patterns, in Germany, England, and Australia. But I haven't confirmed that. I only trade U.S. stocks. But a lot of the foreign markets have penny stocks, and a lot of the foreign market stocks also trade on the U.S. As ADRs, as I talked about. So foreign markets are also getting onto pink sheets. But long story short, I don't care about what's happening in the foreign markets. Pink sheets and gray sheets are a little too speculative even for me. Sometimes they don't trade for a day or even 2 days. And if you try and buy a stock or sell a stock, it doesn't happen very quickly because these stocks are so illiquid. And that kind of sucks. You need that liquidity, you need that volatility. And I'll talk about that in a second. OTC Bulletin Board, I trade a lot of. Mainly just because you have a lot of blatant pump and dumps that trade on OTC bulletin boards. And pump and dumps have the volatility. They can spike or drop 30, 50, 100% in a day. NASDAQ small cap are stocks traded roughly between $2 and $10 a share. And that is my sweet spot. Once you start trading
you'll figure out what your sweet spot is. You know, there are some people that like sub-penny stocks, stocks that trade under under 1 penny per share. And I have never had success trading stocks that low. Obviously, you can make a lot of money if you buy a stock that's trading at, 1/100th of a penny and it goes to 2/100ths of a penny. But you have to buy like 1 million or 5 million shares. I just don't want to take that big position. You can't trust any company trading under a penny a share. There's even new legislation that's trying to do away with stocks trading under a penny a share. This is where I would go. If I had a sweet spot, NASDAQ small cap, and OTC bulletin boards. These are volatile companies. I can trade in and out of the volatility based on the news, and I can get pretty good executions and try and make solid profits in a few hours or a few days.